This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
What's up, everybody? Hope you had an awesome long weekend. Welcome to a Tuesday edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Andrew Paterson and Michael Remis with you. Should be a great show. Lots to get to surrounding the 8-0 Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Brilliant win in Calgary against a very good Stampeders squad on the weekend. Justin Dunk from 3 Down Nation's going to jump on. We'll talk about the Bombers' big win, as well as all the rest of the action in the Canadian Football League. And we'll get JD's thoughts on an upcoming game for the Blue and Gold just 2 days from now on Thursday night in Montreal. Another part of this really tough first half schedule for the Blue and Gold. They'll complete their first half without a bye Thursday night against Montreal, then come back for a game the following Thursday at home against the Alouettes before taking their first bye of the season. But 8-0, it is the big story of the day, really of the weekend. We'll be all over that. And then Jeff Hamilton as well. And obviously we'll get into quite a bit of Bomber and CFL talk with Hammer. Love to say we'd get into some Jets talk, but I'm not sure how long we can stretch out a conversation on the signing of Leon Gavanka, although he did re-sign with the Winnipeg Jets. We'll see whether he gets through waivers that next year if he does, in fact, get signed. So, hey, first things first, welcome to everyone in on the program, and thanks to all of our sponsors that make this show happen each and every day, including Aikens Lake, Wallace & Wallace, F Apparel, Vita Health, Culligan Water, Royal Sports, Canadian Club, Breezy Bend, Not Auto Corp, the Nick and Nicky DQ Group, Little Brown Jug, Princess Auto, BP, Assiniboia Downs, and Coolbet Canada. All right, let's welcome everybody in live on YouTube. Shout out to you all. Make sure you've hit that red subscribe button if you haven't already. And join us every day, Monday to Friday here at 1. And, of course, to everyone listening on the podcast, if you ever have the opportunity to pop into Apple or Spotify, give us a 5-star rating and a review. Always appreciate you helping us grow the channel. Let's get Remis in here. Remo, what's up? How was the weekend? How was the big party?
Yeah, big long weekend. I was stressing all weekend with my sons. We had a birthday party for him yesterday. He turned 3 today, and the pre-party anxiety, very real, but it went very well. And big shout out to Nick from DQ who hooked us up with a dinosaur cake. I'll put that up later. Yeah, big cake from Nick. Big DQ
dinosaur cake.
Loved it.
Now, give me a quick idea, because this is something that's very foreign to me.
Mm-hmm.
What anxiety does one have before a bunch of 3-year-olds invade to eat a DQ dinosaur cake and have fun? I mean, It's pretty straightforward, isn't it? I mean,
oh no, what do you mean? Planning, making sure you have all the stuff. Are people going to show up? Are they going to have fun? Is the weather going to cooperate? Do we have the right things? People going to have a good time?
What were the activities?
Bouncy castle.
Oh, that's always a hit. That's always a hit.
Water table. I had this inflatable pool.
What's a water table?
Oh, see, you don't have kids. You don't know. It's like a table. I didn't know about this either. That you fill with water, and they have like buckets and stuff, and they just like pour it on each other. And you it's like a strainer. You pour water in, and water comes everywhere. It's kids love it.
So you had your own little mini water park for the kids.
Yeah, we had a lot of different activities. Yeah, we had cornhole, a lot of stuff.
Did any of the kids actually participate in cornhole? Was that a parent game?
That was for older. Yeah.
Nice. But it went well. Happy birthday to Evan, I guess.
Here,
belated.
I'll show you the cake here. I got it up. Shout it to Nick.
Fire it up.
This is my weekend. So it was literally like just a lot of pre-party anxiety. So there it is. Nick did this up.
Oh, shout out to DQ Nick.
There it is. So.
Hard to believe the little guy's 3 years old now, man.
Yeah, I know.
Well, and we got to see, was that Friday night you guys went by the baseball game, or was that earlier?
We went to the Gold Eyes game Friday. A big weekend for the Gold Eyes. A lot of my friends, too, taking their kids as well. Great entertainment. It's kind of funny. I never really taken him to a sporting event before. And he loved all the things like, when they hit a foul ball and then they play the sound of glass breaking. He's like, "What's that?" I'm like, "Oh, glass broke." And
that's the Stone Cold Steve Austin music, Evan.
And then just like he saw Goldie. I don't think he'd ever seen a mascot really. And he's like, "Oh, what's that? Who's that big yellow guy?" And we were trying to go meet him, but he was busy, so we didn't get a chance to. But we had a great time. A lot of food, selections there, popcorn, fries, good stuff there.
So I went not with a 3-year-old, but with a few of my Lugan buddies.
Yes.
Posted up in Craft Beer Corner and I hadn't really eaten all day, and we went to town on the concessions. I mean, we almost take for granted how great the food is at the ballpark. But here were some of the things that myself and my associates took down. The pierogies and farmer sausage, unbelievable. The Goldie dog, which you have to get at the very far end of right field. And I know there's been all this hype about the whistle dog, which I support. Huge whistle dog guy here. The Goldie dog, though, split dog, bacon, cheese, fried onions, and the bacon on it is phenomenal. So the Goldie dog wasn't great. Underrated, and this is probably the best value item at the ballpark, Remo, the taco time. Tacos, however you want to pronounce that. I think you bumped into us just as we had got the tacos. You there.
Taco time's very underrated. It's pretty good. So
$3.50 for the beef taco, and it was phenomenal. I mean, that was Balls' decision. He just went and grabbed a round of tacos. We ate them. I left going, that's going to be at least once a time. My big disappointment was, though, I was going to get the butter chicken. And I waited too long, and they were closed. So there you have it. Plenty of amazing things. Oh, and I did have nachos and a junior dog later on in the game as well. So needless to say, we didn't go hungry at the game. Great game as well. I think the Gold Eyes fanned like 16 batters in that game. There's an exciting one, went right down to the end. Great performance for the local ball team. And I just saw Russ Lowen in chat saying he bumped into IC Drew at the Valor game. I would have missed you there, but I was there as well in the afternoon on Saturday. It was a heater, a beautiful afternoon, though, for a game. Again, if you haven't been out to Valor FC, I really recommend you do. And by the way, actually, stick around later on in the program. I'm just realizing that there is a game tomorrow night. So we'll do the Wheel of Winners for folks that, maybe would like to get out and see our soccer team. So we'll do that. Valor's got a bunch of home games over the course of the next little while, I think Wednesday and Sunday. So we've got some tickets for you to go out. I will say this about the game, Reem. Valor got jobbed, and I am not a soccer expert by any stretch of the imagination. And yes, this is quite a homer take. But Valor dominated the first half. They scored the first goal. They were comfortably ahead. And in about the 68th minute or thereabouts, Valor had it deep in the other team's zone, got around a defender into the box, and what looked like an completely obvious penalty in the box, which would have given Valor a penalty kick to go up 2-0, was not only not called a foul, but a yellow card was given to the Valor forward for diving. I thought that was bogus, but the worst part about it was he had already had a yellow card, so he was out. So instead of Valor kicking to go up 2-0, it was 1-0, and all of a sudden they were down to 10 men, and Pacific scored in the 71st and the 73rd minute, a complete flip of the game script, and the team ended up losing by 1. But overall, another gorgeous afternoon at the park. Stick around. We've got Valor FC tickets later on. And that was a great primer, Remo, for the main event of the weekend when it came to the local sports scene. And that was getting in front of the tube or throwing on OB. and following the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and the Calgary Stampeders go at it. That was a heavyweight tilt. What, honest to God, and I was just doing the lock shop with Dustin Nielsen, who called the game. That was one of the best CFL games, certainly in the regular season, I can remember in ages. Arguably the two best teams in the league, playing near mistake-free football, no turnovers, no sacks, hardly any penalties, and both teams going toe-to-toe, laying haymakers back the other way. And once again, the Bombers just simply refusing to lose, finding a way to get it done. 2 touchdowns for Nick Dembski, 2 touchdowns for Dalton Schoen. But from my opinion, Reem, and I'll get your take on this, the biggest story of the game was the emergence of the Bomber running game. You want a WST bump? Patty Neufeld and the Bomber offensive line provided that bump. Brady Oliveira was as explosive as you've ever seen. Broke a few big plays. The Bombers ran for 100 yards in the first half. And just like Patty said on the show last week, they would like to establish the run and what that helps them do. They did it against BC on the road. They did it again in another huge, tough spot. That was just another incredible win for a team that just makes what seems so special seem almost normal, because we see it every week.
Yeah, this defense, the offense, the way they can come back in a tight game. Zach, he's going to make plays, finding Dalton Schoen deep. I was driving home from the beach listening to the radio, and I heard Derek Taylor's call, and I'm like fist bumping, driving in the car. But the story for me, as well as the run game, we talked a lot about Brady Oliveira, just wasn't getting the yardage, and you have to give him full credit. 15 carries, 110 yards, and the run game has really emerged in the 2 toughest games of the year, the Calgary game on the road this weekend and the BC game. But I think the defense, when teams get close to the red zone, they don't score touchdowns. And Randy Paredes going 5 for 5 and them not being able to convert on the first 3 possessions where they scored field goals. I think that's huge. And when you're allowing field goals and then scoring touchdowns, that's a recipe for success. And as Zach calls, 4 touchdown passes, no picks. Incredible. Nick Dembski, Ed Tate talked about him on Friday. We threw the clip up how much, of a, interesting part of the offense he brings. He can catch, he can run. You can do gadget plays with him, but he caught 2 touchdowns. And Dalton Schoen, he's really emerged. And I thought the other guys, Rasheed Bailey, we've kind of said he got off to a slow start. He's came on the last couple of games, 5 catches on 5 targets, 55 yards. And Drew Wolitarsky, I know you had him in DraftKings. He's always there too. And I think he made some big plays as well. Jernarian Grant had the sweep. Mark Leggio haven't had too much to get upset with him lately. So everyone playing well. Incredible. 8-0. You can't beat him.
Yeah, special shout out to Drew Wolitarsky. The biggest play of the game was that 3rd catch of his late in the 4th quarter to put me on top of the showdown contest you did. Yes. And sneak that one out. But this is just an incredible team performance. And as I said, it's difficult to single out one particular area of the club because, let's be straight. To beat the Calgary Stampeders, a team like that on the road, everyone needs to step up. And whether it was the offense, the defense, special teams, everybody was there. But I have to say, though, the most significant thing for this team going forward, Remo, was what the running game was able to do. And you look at Brady Oliveira's numbers. And hey, let's not forget, I'll own this. I was the guy a week ago watching Andrew Harris go for 10K in the way he was running all over the Saskatchewan Roughriders and thinking, that's the missing piece for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And listen, I think a lot of people have been thinking that because the running game has been somewhat pedestrian, certainly compared to the incredible level that, standard that's been set by Harris over the last little while. I'm sure Brady Oliveira heard some of that. I'm sure the guys in the room heard some of that. And while I'm sure they still love Andrew Harris, and if he's here with the Bombers, that would be great. The bottom line is if Brady Oliveira and the Bomber offensive line play the way they did against Calgary, they won't need to think about that because that running game will be essentially where it was last year. 15 carries, 110 yards, an average of 7.3, was just about double what he'd had for most of the game so far this season, and broke a couple big plays, including a 31-yarder, Remis. This is big for the team. It's big for the unit, but it's especially big for a young man that's also from Winnipeg, following literally in Andrew Harris's shoes. And those shoes, dare I say, for a surefire Hall of Famer are about the biggest in the history of that position, certainly here in Winnipeg. And, I think there's been a lot of pressure on him, but he came through when his team needed it. That was a massive part of that big win on Saturday.
Yeah, he had some big holes, 31 yards, his longest run of the year, and he hit them with speed. He made guys miss. He did all these things that we weren't sure. I mean, last time against Calgary in week 6, he had 9 carries and had 8 yards. It's 0.9 yards per carry. It's pretty poor, and 15 carries, 110 yards, and it helps the offense so much when you can do that. It takes pressure off Zach. But even you saw the end of the game, Claris, his pocket presence, how he can move, find open guys, it's absolutely incredible to watch. So when you have the offense moving on all cylinders, like they were, and they're missing Greg Ellingson and Jackson Jeffcoat. The Bombers, maybe they played one of their best games, but even when they played their worst game, like they did against Edmonton, they still win. So 8-0, they got more wins than the whole East Division combined, or sorry, maybe just as many now that they had the game Sunday, but still, what a start to the season for them. And just should we just give him the trophy already? Is that what Bo Levi Mitchell said? Oh no, he said they don't hand out the trophy after this.
Yeah, well, and that is true. They certainly don't. But that win was massive for so many reasons. I mean, first of all, the Bombers have the head-to-head series against Calgary right now for the year. I mean, the only way those teams will play again is if they meet in the playoffs. And I think with how good the BC Lions are this year and what they've been able to do in the head-to-head games coming up, the fact that the Bombers are 8-0 right now and, hopefully can handle their business against Montreal the next couple weeks. I mean, we could be in a situation very similar to last year where with 3-4 games left in the season, the Bombers could essentially have first place locked up. Now, listen, there's a long ways to go for that, and they have to keep on winning. But that tiebreaker over Calgary is massive. And they've already got the road win against the BC Lions. So they've certainly put themselves in a great, great spot. And we remember about what that West Final was like. And even with the Bombers turning the football over 5 times in the first half, the defense was good enough that, for Calgary or BC, the thought of them coming in and beating the Bombers in November, let's just say I like the Bombers' chances. So you get first place. I think there's a very good chance that the Bombers will be making a trip to Regina for the Grey Cup in November and trying to make it 3 in a row. We'll get to much more on the Canadian Football League in the weekend that was, and the Bombers going to 8-0 with Justin Dunk coming up in a few minutes. And we'll also talk on that with Jeff Hamilton a little later on. Remo, we'll do our horse picks at the end, but big shout out to everyone that was out at the Derby. And I guess a big Barry Horowitz to the two of us. We both picked a winner. And I believe for me, that is 2 straight years of picking the Derby winner. I will say this, the rest of the night, I didn't really do too much, but we got the big red, what was it? Red Knobs.
Red Knobs, yes. And you said to me, yesterday afternoon, we should tweet out our horse picks. Promote the Derby. And I was like, all right, I'm pretty nervous here about tweeting a pick out because, look, my record this year isn't that great, but I did my own research and landed on Red Knobs, and I put 10 on Red Knobs to win. And I was there in my basement watching. I had all the TVs on. One of them, Assiniboia Downs YouTube, and I was there going pretty crazy when Red Knobs took the lead at the end. It looked like a huge crowd there. I did also hit Great Escape, who finished second. I had to show. I was up quite a bit. So Red Knobs, my new favorite horse.
Yeah, that was nice. For some reason, I was thinking Red Panda. when and that, of course, do you know who Red Panda is, Reem? That's the
I know Kung
the
Fu
lady.
Panda.
No, Red Panda. That's the lady that goes out at the half times of basketball games and kicks the bowls up on top of her head, on top of that. It's like on a unicycle, basically. Red Panda,
Not familiar.
absolute legendary. In the chat, folks, let people know what's up with the Red Panda. Anyways, it was in fact Red Knobs, and but anyways, that was nice. You won 2 of those. I was close on the other ones, but a positive night for both of us on Derby Day, which was great. I'll tell you what. A big shout out to our friends at Assiniboia Downs. Yesterday was a record day in ASD history. First of all, a great crowd out at the Downs. We saw people. I know Mike Wynn went all the way up into the grandstand up at the top, and was saying that there was people all the way up there. And now, obviously, they're doing great with the live betting and betting from around the world on the track. But just kind of post-COVID, attendance is not quite what it was in the heyday. That wasn't the case last night. Packed in person, which was great to see. But check out these numbers. An all-time record for one race, 374,000 bet on the Derby. Over 1.5 million spent on the Pick 5, which had a guaranteed payout yesterday. And over $3.5 million for the day at Assiniboia Downs. All records. So big shout out to Darren Dunn. They've, obviously Darren joined us last week, and they've been dealing with a few things there. But a great way to send off the biggest day at the track all year long. And obviously Manitobans and people from around the world paying attention to what's happening at Assiniboia Downs, and our guy, Red Knobs, taking the Manitoba Derby.
Yeah, shout out to Rob Noakes in the chat on the Red Knobs win. So Huss, you recapped it all. I mean, it was it's a long weekend, not a lot of hockey going on, but Friday we had the Gold Eyes, or all weekend really. Saturday, Valor, Bombers. Sunday, we had the Derby, Monday. I got my days are all mixed up with this long weekend. But then also you had SummerSlam on UFC on Saturday. Amazing fight with Amanda Nunes. Those girls were killing each other in the ring. And then also Sunday, Ric Flair's last match. So I mean, who said
you're
it's
also burying the lead? You're also burying the lead here.
Which? What do we
Tony
forget?
Finau going back to back on the PGA Tour, and yours truly going back to back on the Lock Shop. The first time ever, 3 straight winners. Dusty and I are now 5 of 6.
Wow.
And I will tease this because we just did the show. If you'd like to see one of 3 guys who will win this week's event, the Wyndham Championship, fingers crossed, we just did the picks. Wherever you get your podcast, search Lock Shop, subscribe. And we don't have it up on a YouTube channel yet, but you can just go to my Twitter, @Hustlerama. You can see the links. You can watch it there. Very much looking forward to that. And, hey, Tony Finau, I was telling Dusty earlier today, I've always been a fan of his because he was the first PGA Tour player to ever come on the warm-up back in the old days. And was one of the nicest guys I've ever talked to, incredibly gracious, and was just really cutting his teeth on the tour at that point. Of course, did play out here in Winnipeg on PGA Tour Canada at some point. That's such a great story and is just such a damn fine human being. And he's got so many fans, but the way that he's playing right now, he's really putting that tour on his back with back-to-back wins. Wyndham Championship, he'll take a break, and then it's FedEx Cup playoffs coming up. So, that was nice, and as I said at the start, I just hope that we haven't completely bankrupted Coolbet with these golf picks as of late, so they'll still be there with us, and we will get to our Coolbet picks later on. But yes, you mentioned SummerSlam and Ric Flair. I saw SummerSlam. I'll look forward to a Ric Flair report on whatever the hell that was on the weekend.
We'll talk about it. Also, shout out to Taylor Pendrith finishing second there, tied for second.
Speaking of Coolbet, guys.
Yeah, and then also, it is the MLB trade deadline today. We did have a monster blockbuster deal with Juan Soto being dealt for a large package of prospects to the Padres.
Have the Jays done anything yet?
They got reliever Anthony Bass and another guy. Who was it? But we're kind of still waiting to see if they're going to do something else. I know the Mariners got Castillo over the weekend. Yankees got who? Frankie Montas. So yeah, Zach Pop was the other guy from the Marlins, and Anthony Bath. So
all right. Well,
we'll wait
we're
and
gonna
see.
we're gonna hook up with Justin Dunk of 3 Down Nation, talk some towards CFL. Hammer coming up a little later on, and then meantime, Reem, maybe put together a little bit of a who went where for the Major League Baseball trade deadline. We'll get to that. All right, just before we bring in Justin Dunk, got to give a big shout out to our friends at Aikens Lake. We'll see you in a couple days. I am going to take a couple days off. Remo will be holding it down with some friends on Thursday and Friday, and we'll be out hopefully catching tons of fish at the incredible Aikens Lake Fly-In Fishing Resort. Check them out online at Aikens Lake. Find out more online at aikenslake.com. Of course, the social media feeds at Aikens Lake, and get planning what could be an incredible trip for you and family or a great corporate event next year. And you can be on the water in less than 2 hours from the city of Winnipeg at Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge. Hey, if you're out ripping around the lake on the weekend and caught a boathouse door that catches your eye, good chance it's Wallace & Wallace's. Listen, you know them as the fencing and overhead door specialists here in Winnipeg for like 70 plus years. But they also dominate the boathouse door biz. And hey, you can choose between a steel or aluminum door, polycarbonate or glass panels, and a design for your perfect little piece of paradise. And with galvanized tracks and springs to protect against rust, you know their doors are built up to the challenges of life at the lake. They also do service. You can give them a call at 204-452-2700. But find out more or hit them up at wallacedoors.com or check out their showroom on Lawson Road. And our friends at Vita Health Fresh Market are having a great summer, and so are their customers, enjoying great prices on Winnipeg's best selection of natural organic supplements, beauty products, and groceries. And with barbecue season in full swing, you can get your barbecue on with delicious lean bison steaks or chicken, hot dogs, burgers, and great non-alcoholic drink options like Sober Carpenter beer and clever mocktails. Everything you need for a great summer day. And hey, if you can't make it down to one of the stores, visit their new fully shoppable website to buy online, schedule a delivery, or in-store pickup. Support local. Vita Health Fresh Market, empowering people to lead healthy lives. 7 Winnipeg locations, including the newest store in Linden Ridge, and online at myvita.ca. And I got to give a shout out to our pal Zach Schnitzer, of course, who does the bonfire bomber stuff with Darren Bombing. I saw Zach out in Calgary on the weekend. I think he was at a wedding, and he had just got a new suit from F Apparel. As we mentioned, you can get what you want inside it. Well, you open it up, it was Go Bombers Go, all on the inside of it. I've got a neat little wrinkle for the suit that I've got coming from F. We'll show that when it arrives. But if you are in the mix to maybe spice up the formal wear in your department, get on down to F Apparel. Custom suits beginning at $400, but much more than just suits. Great special right now in the summer. 3 custom shirts for just $210. It really does need to be seen to be believed. Pop down and see them at 190 Smith Street on everything they can do for you, or shop online or make an appointment online at F. That's EPHapparel.com. All right, let's talk some CFL. Bombers are 8-0. They keep rolling, and what a game we had between Winnipeg and Calgary, but there was more in the Canadian Football League to get to. Let's welcome in our good friend Justin Dunk from 3 Down Nation. Dunker, what's up, man? How was your long weekend?
Dude, it was a blast. I was at a cottage in Tobermory on Lake Huron, our family cottage, man. Lots of quality time with the nephews and my niece, so couldn't have gone any better, buddy. What about yours?
Well, you know what? It was great. And we were just talking to Remo. We had a lot of good stuff happening around in the city. Went down to the ballpark, so the baseball team caught the soccer game on Saturday afternoon. And that was a nice little primer for the main event, because I'll be honest, there was one thing that was circled above all on this long weekend, and it was Saturday night, 6 o'clock, Winnipeg Blue Bombers, Calgary Stampeders rematch of that great game a couple weeks ago. And holy smokes, did it deliver. You know, regardless of the final end score, Justin, I've got to ask you, for someone that watches so much of the 3-down game, was that the most well-played game on both sides of the football you've seen in a long time? The no sacks, no penalties, no turnovers. I mean, this was just 2 great teams going in a heavyweight tilt that someone had to lose.
It really was some crisp football, and I would maybe go back to that Stampeders Bombers game at IG Field that was pretty well played as well. But to the point that you're making, I think it was a high level game, and we saw Zach Collaros again come through in the clutch. And I was talking to some people around the league, and they said one of the things that he does so well is he has been very good in second and long situations. And we saw that again at McMahon Stadium against Calgary, just when the Stampeders felt like, multiple times they could get that Bombers offense off the field. And we've seen it really over Collaros' entire time with the Blue Bombers, that he'll hit a key strike, keep the chains moving. And he had 4 touchdowns in that game as well, and a couple of key ones each to Nick Stemsky and Dalton Schoen as well. So he had a great day, and overall, that's really what stood out for me. Is there was a lot of talk about Nathan Rourke, the Canadian quarterback with the BC Lions, and him being the front runner to win the MLP award. It's early in the season, but still been some talk about it. And Claris came out and showed, now, I'm still the dude. I'm the reigning MLP, as well as the rest of that team. It was a great football game to watch.
We've talked a lot about the Bombers overall and how they've won these games. And listen, in this business, and I guess the nature of fans, people will nitpick at, and sort of look at some things to talk about. But the bottom line is, this is a results-based business, and the one result that counts is winning and losing, and the Bombers have done it consistently. The games have been different. They've done it in different ways. They did it in a game where they completed 7 passes. They did it in a game where they went in and, would dominate the running game early against the BC Lions, which opened it up. And to me, that was the blueprint for the game on Saturday. And that was the one thing that I don't think a lot of people had the confidence that the Bombers could do, is run the football as it did. We had Patty Neufeld on. He said that they know what they're capable of, and it certainly was, I think, a challenge to them. But from Brady Oliveira's perspective, and Justin, you know what it's like being a former player, to go in and be the guy that's taking over for a legend like Andrew Harris, who didn't retire, is still in the league on another team. There's a ton of pressure that comes along with that. And for him to put up that game against that team in that scenario, I'm not sure there could be something that bodes even better for the Bombers going into the second half of the season in the playoffs than a player like that having a breakout game the way he did against the quality of competition that Calgary brings, especially on defense.
It has to boost Oliveira's confidence, certainly, after that game. And it took the running game a little while to get going, but here the Bombers are still 8-0. And as you mentioned, they found different ways to win. That's really what has stuck out to me again since Claris ended up in Winnipeg at that October deadline in 2019. Various ways to win football games. And I feel like one of the underrated ways that they allow themselves to do that is field position. It's boring, but Mike O'Shea, coming from his special teams coordinator background, always seems to have this team in plus field position, or at least digging out of it and flipping the field, making smart decisions that way. It's so critical in the Canadian game with the 110-yard field and even the wider field as well. And I feel like the Bombers are usually ahead of the chains. And you can think about how many times have you seen the Bombers offense backed up against their own goalposts. It's really rare that that happens. And I think that's a lot of complementary football, as they would say. But I think that's one of the reasons that they find ways to win games. They can do it in different ways. They've shown as well that they can have players, as you alluded to, like an Andrew Harris, move on and they fill it in. Is Brady Oliveira as good as Andrew Harris? No. But the game that he had, going over 100 yards against that Stamps defense that is very stingy, veteran-laden, and talented, led by defensive coordinator Brent Monson, who I think is one of the underrated coaches in the league, was difficult to do. But you get that confidence for Oliveira going forward, increase his workload. You take pressure off Collaros at the quarterback position. And they did all of this in Calgary without 2 of their best players. Greg Ellingson sat on offense. Jackson Jeffcoat was not on the field on defense, and it makes that win even more impressive.
It was. And I just think back to the BC game, the way they established the run, and it hadn't been going well. They rushed for more yards in the first quarter than they did against Toronto in the entire previous game on that Monday. And then to rush early, the Bombers had 100 yards on the ground in the first half, Justin. When you're able to do that, and speak to it from a quarterback's perspective, when you're able to get those yards on the ground, what that does for somebody like Zach Collaros to open up the field and have the confidence to take some more shots And we saw it in spades in the second half with Dalton Schoen after Nick Dembski was the hero for the first two touchdowns.
It's critical. It can open up windows just that little bit more that you need to fit the football in there. And especially on your run fakes, you draw the linebackers up and you make that throwing area much wider. Clarence has shown that he doesn't necessarily need it to be that big to put the football in there, but it helps your offense out a lot when the linebacker's first step is forward instead of just gaining ground and getting deeper in their pass drop. So it's critical. And the Bombers have stuck with the ground game. It's just the fact that Oliveira finally had the production with the higher number of carries. They've tried to run the football all year long. And I still think they have the best offensive line in the league, led by left tackle Stanley Bryan. And it was only a matter of time until Oliveira got in a rhythm with that group. I think that's underrated. Some people think you can just stick a running back in there and off to the races they go, but that's not the case, especially with an offensive line that's been together for a long time. And it doesn't really change that much game to game. They've stayed fairly healthy as well. It takes time to develop that rhythm and understand where your cutback lanes are naturally going to be on the various run plays that team dials up under offensive coordinator Buck Pierce. So in my mind, it's a great confidence booster and it helps out your reigning MOP quarterback as well. Even if it's just a token run fake, the defenders know they have to pop up in case it is run against such a talented offensive line.
Justin Dunk with us from 3 Down Nation here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. There were other games. It wasn't just Calgary and Winnipeg, although we probably talk about it all day. What were your takeaways from BC's win in Regina? A huge second half, but a real power outage for Saskatchewan after they got those first 17 points. Where are both of those teams, in your opinion, leaving week 7 or week 8?
The major momentum changer, I think, for both teams. The Riders head into their first bye week of the season at 4-4, and quarterback Cody Fajardo said it flat out. We're a middle-of-the-pack team that has got to figure it out, and I think that's where the Riders are. And considering they've lost 3 in a row going into that bye week, 2 against the Toronto Argonauts that I'm sure a lot of Riders fans penciled in as W's going into those games, but they lose it, and then they're up 17-4, and the Lions rattle off 28 straight points unanswered to end the game. And Canadian quarterback Nathan Rourke shows he can go into a hostile environment, isn't bothered by it, can fight the adversity. As I mentioned, was down 17-4 and brings his team back, completes over 80% of his passes, and just looks like this rising superstar in arguably the most difficult stadium to play in the league. I think IG Field would rival them, and Bombers fans would have their hand up saying, yeah, we're pretty loud too. Okay, guys. But in my mind, it changes the complexion of the West Division, because now if you're BC, you feel like you're in the driver's seat to be in the playoffs and not necessarily be that crossover team, right? We haven't seen a crossover team go to the East and get to the Grey Cup, right? That's one of the things that has never happened in this league. And even though some people might think it's easier against the East Division, hasn't happened. BC can understand that, hey, they're in competition there with the Calgary Stampeders to potentially get a home playoff game in the West semifinal right now. I think that's what they're looking at. If you're the Saskatchewan Roughriders, you got to get better, and I think that starts and ends with protecting Fajardo better. But they played him, except for that game against the Argos where he was in COVID protocol with that knee injury, and now they have 9 of their last 10 games against West Division opponents in an uphill battle. So the Riders need to come back rested and recuperated. Certainly Fajardo's knee, for Roughriders fans, must get better for them to have a chance to play in that Grey Cup game at home in November.
There's no doubt. I mean, when you look at the landscape of the CFL right now, I mean, obviously things can change, and they do have all those games against the West. But I mean, I joked last week that the Riders travel coordinator can start looking at hotels and, one of the East spots for the crossover game, because, I mean, I think we really have a clear top 3 in the West right now, and frankly, the Canadian Football League, and they're all in that same division. And the Bombers, with the win and the sweep against Calgary, have given themselves such an opportunity to maybe do what they did last year, be comfortably in first, not to mention the 3 buys in the second half. I mean, it's sort of the fact that they've got all this done in the most important time of the year. It really bodes well for the second half for the Bombers and completing the ultimate goal. But after Winnipeg, who gets your nod as the number 2 team in the West right now? Is it BC or is it the Calgary Stampeders?
Well, It's really tight. Right now, honestly, it would be the Stamps because they've played Winnipeg close both times. And in my mind, they were really one-score games. So I think that's the critical difference there is that the Blue Bombers went to BC Place and laid a little bit of a smackdown on the Lions, brought them back down to reality. Now, they're obviously going to play again this season. But for me, the Stamps are 2 right now, and we'll see when those teams go head-to-head. I believe they meet each other 3 times the rest of the way in the regular season. So I got obviously the Blue Bombers are 1 in a tier of their own, I think, right now. Stampeders are 2, and the Lions are right there battling. They're 3, but I think it'll be tight between those teams down the stretch.
What do we make of the East? Like, who's the best team in the East right now, Justin? I mean, who's that? Is there or are these just 4 at best mediocre teams fighting to see who's going to get a home playoff game in November?
It kind of seems that way. I mean, it would have been easy to say before the Argos Red Blacks game that it's Toronto because they won the East last year. They hosted the East final. Yeah, they lost to the Tiger Cats, but that was quite a comeback that the Tiger Cats pulled off to get to that home Grey Cup. But then the Argos go out and lose to the winless Red Blacks. Now, I don't think Ottawa is as bad as some people might think just due to their record. You look at it and it's 0-6, but Winnipeg Blue Bombers fans know how good the Red Blacks were. There was 2 one-score games there with Ottawa when Jeremiah Masoli was healthy, and the Red Blacks haven't been getting blown out. They've been close in all of their games except for that loss in Saskatchewan of the Rough Riders, where I believe they lost by 15. So I don't necessarily think the Red Blacks are terrible, but the East is clearly a major step down from those top 3 teams in the West. I think Saskatchewan, is in the mix there in terms of being not as quite dominant over the East Division because they have those 2 losses to the Argos. And then you have the Elks who have 2 wins, but those both came over East Division teams, Montreal and Hamilton. So in my mind, the East Division, at least for right now, until some team gets hot, is just going to be, what would the word be in the Grey Cup? Like, anything can happen, and we've seen that with the Ottawa Red Blacks, who have gotten to a Grey Cup a couple times at the 500 mark, and then Henry Burris beats that dominant Calgary Stampeders team in Toronto. Mm-hmm. But I just have a hard time seeing one of these East Division teams competing for a Grey Cup. Honestly, the only team that I could see doing it is the Argos. They played really well. I was at that touchdown Atlantic game live against the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Yes, Fajardo's knee was ailing him, but still, Toronto played really well in that game. And as long as McLeod Bethel-Thompson is protecting the football, I think he can keep them in games against the West Division teams. But then we got to remember, they went out to play at BC Place and got throttled 44-3 by the Lions. And they haven't even played the Stampeders yet, but somehow they played Winnipeg close at home. So I think the Argos are the one team that I would look at right now, and we still have a bunch of the season to go, that could potentially be competitive, at least with those West Division teams.
Well, it certainly shapes up for an interesting rest of the way. We got 2 days before another Bomber game, and it's going to be their 9th game of the season. They'll be finished their half of their schedule when they wake up on Friday morning. Where are the Montreal Alouettes at? And like this game, I was just talking with Nielsen on the Lock Shop, and this game opened up last night at 6. And I'll be honest, I took the Alouettes originally on this. I still think the Bombers will win and will find a way to win because they always do. But I think this is a very difficult spot for the Bombers to go in, considering the injuries they've had, the way they played, another short week, traveling out there. And at times the Bombers have been in close games. Do you share that thought that, this might be a tougher game than many people just assume because of how Winnipeg's rolled over team so far this year?
Definitely. It could be a letdown spot, especially going into Montreal with that flu that seems to pop up in that city so often. But the Blue Bombers are so focused.
It's a Thursday game. Wednesday night's not as banging in Montreal than the weekend.
I'm sure you can still find a party if you wanted to, but I agree that probably helps out the Blue Bombers going there. But this team, I thought honestly they were going to lose last week in Calgary. It seemed like a prime spot with Greg Ellingson, Jackson Jeff Code out, as you mentioned, short week, traveling out to the Stampeders, who were off a bye week, by the way. But I still see the Blue Bombers going into Montreal and getting a win because this Alouettes team is so up and down. They've been taking so many penalties is the key issue. And it doesn't seem like they have that energy that was a difference maker for them under Kahari Jones, in my mind, to get in the playoffs in 2019. And I think it's gone under Danny Machocha, who's right now the interim head coach and general manager. So I like the Bombers going in there. I don't necessarily care who plays or not for Winnipeg. The line, as you mentioned, it opens at 6. I might lean towards taking the Alouettes, but they haven't shown that they can compete, I think, with these West Division teams. And in my mind, until they show it, I'm not going to bet on them to cover a line at home against what is a superior team in the Blue Bombers.
Well, JD, I know you guys will be all over the Canadian Football League. Hey, just before we go, I want to ask you a quick question on football 4 down south of the border. What do you make of this situation? Deshaun Watson gets a 6-game suspension. Potentially Roger Goodell might appeal and then rule himself on it. I imagine there is some face saving in all of this. It's a very difficult thing, I think, for the adjudicators to rule on. And the fact that, you see what other players have been suspended for in the past and how many games have been given out. And a grand jury never, brought charges against Deshaun Watson. But then again, you've also got 30-odd women that have made accusations against him. I mean, is this going to be a 6-game and then they move on? Or is this just the start of plenty of more back and forth between the league, the PA, and ultimately Roger Goodell getting involved?
Well, we'll see if it goes anymore, as you mentioned, with Goodell getting involved. But the tricky thing in these situations, as you mentioned, that key word, Huss, is accusations, right? And he's settled, 23 of the 24 civil lawsuits. So that means that they're not going to be able to talk or testify, any of those women, and they've essentially been paid off. So I think that's where it makes it really difficult for Goodell if he does want to add games or a different adjudicator or somebody that's going to step in here because of that situation, right? The fact that it hasn't gone before a grand jury, the fact that there is no criminal charges. I understand people wanted to see a longer suspension. I was in that group as well. But when you look at the facts of it, and the lawyer that he hired, I believe, is Rusty Hardin, the connections that he has and the money that Deshaun Watson has, we got to remember that plays a large role oftentimes when we talk about the law and how these things get dealt with. So as much as people wanted to see a bigger suspension, also you got to understand it from all of those perspectives as well. So that's why I think it's a tricky situation, one that's difficult to rule on. Certainly glad that I don't have to, but yeah, you definitely want to see a longer suspension based on, again, accusations.
Well, and then the other thing that just came out today in the last couple hours, and there was all sorts of talk about potential tampering with the Miami Dolphins trying to get Tom Brady, and of course the accusations of their former head coach that they were trying to duck games. Stephen Ross suspended now for a few up until mid-October, but the Dolphins losing their first-round pick in 2023 and a third-rounder afterwards. And what's particularly key about this is a show-it season for Tua Tagovailoa. If Tua can't get it done, they're probably looking for a quarterback. It's a very rich quarterback class, and now the Dolphins do not have a pick.
They don't have a pick, but Tom Brady will be a free agent, and they've already tampered with him. What I'm most curious about in this situation is see us? Does Tom Brady or his agent Don Yee get slapped with anything here? Because it takes two to tamper, right? So that's what I don't really understand is, yes, the Dolphins were the one seemingly initiating it based on Roger Goodell's statement. But that doesn't mean that down the line, Brady's not going to go to Miami, not going to be, minority owner that they wanted him to be. So that's what I have a hard time understanding. It's all in the Dolphins, and they want to keep this shiny, polished image on Tom Brady. I don't blame him, right? He's got the rings to prove it. But that, to me, is what was missing from this whole story, is that you can't tamper if the other people on the other side aren't willing.
Well, you know what? You bring up a great point. And Tom Brady, already a previous offender with the Deflategate, 4-game suspension. I think 6 games makes sense for Tom Brady. No, I'm joking, folks. I'm joking. Deshaun should get more, but we'll see what happens with that. Fill us in on what you and Haji and the guys have coming up this week, heading into Thursday's game with the Bombers in Montreal and the rest of the CFL action in the week.
Yeah, lots of content coming. Even though it's a Riders bye week, our guy out in Regina, Brendan McGuire, is going to have piece on Mario Alford. And even though he had that dynamic return touchdown, Craig Dickinson wants to see him get more north-south. I'll have the latest TV ratings from last weekend's game. I'm waiting on the Red Blacks Argos Sunday number, Husk, because there had been some debate. Well, should the CFL potentially look at playing more Sunday games in the summer until the NFL schedule starts? Well, we'll get an idea how that number does. And then, of course, John Hodge, our guy based in Winnipeg, where you are, will have Insider Talk, which is always full of juicy tidbits. And then all the rest of the latest news on 3downnation.com, buddy.
Hey, do we have a TV number for the Bomber Stamps game? How was it?
Oh, let me just check real quick. Bear with me. I do have it.
You would think, I mean, it's a challenging date because, of course, it is smack dab in the middle of a long weekend. A lot of people might be off doing other things. But
you want to guess, Husk?
As far as marquee matchups, how about, so I guess I'm going to go 530.
Ooh, not bad. It's over, though. 607, 700. Nice. Over 600,000 viewers tuned in for that tilt.
And I mean, you follow this weekly. That's a very strong number for TSN, especially Saturday of a long weekend, I'd suggest.
It definitely is. And you look at all the weeks leading into, what was it, week 8 before this game, there's only 3 games that went over 600,000 viewers. All 3 of those games involved the Saskatchewan Roughriders. The Riders did go over. Actually, we had our first 700,000 game this week. That'll probably be the focus of my TV ratings piece. That Roughriders Lions game was just over 700,000. But the fact the Blue Bombers cracked 600,000 for the first time, as you mentioned it, in a difficult spot where a lot of people might be out at the cottage or the cabin or away from their TVs, it's certainly impressive. It'll probably be a large average week for the CFL.
Dunk, always appreciate you joining us, man. Have a great week and enjoy the action starting on Friday in Montreal.
You bet, buddy. Thanks for having me on, Husk.
Appreciate it. There he is, Justin Dunk at JDunk12 on Twitter, and make sure you're checking out the CFL content at 3 Down Nation on a daily basis. All right, more on the Bombers and much more with Hammer coming up in just a second. Quick hydration break on WST, brought to you by our friends at Culligan Water, the local water experts for over 65 years, family-owned here in the Peg. They've got it all. Water softeners, filters, bottled water coolers, whole home systems, drinking water systems, citywide water delivery services, and commercial and industrial water products and solutions. Pop down and see them at 1200 Sargent Avenue. You can hit them up at 694-5180 or check them out online at drinkculligan.com. I saw Greg at Royal Sports last night, and the gang has been busy. The weekend, normally a long weekend, a little quieter retail-wise, not so this week. And tons of people popping in and picking up great things to do on the long weekend. Moving a ton of disc golf product, tennis and more, shoes, fitness gear, and of course, bikes and more bikes at the back of the store. And with hockey season just around the corner, getting a lot of young players ready for a new season, but at the same time with an expanded soccer, baseball, and softball section and more. And not to mention the best selection of merchandise from your favorite teams and leagues from all around the world. Pop down and see them at 750 Pembina Highway, and make sure to follow them on Instagram at Royal Sports Pembina for the latest merchandise drops and sale information. Big cheers to the gang over at Canadian Clubs. A few CC and Gingers being enjoyed at the Valor FC game on the weekend. Of course, Canadian Club proud sponsor of the Bombers and Valor FC, and pouring everywhere at IG Field. And of course, not just the good stuff at Canadian Club, but the new drink of the summer, the ready-to-drink Canadian Club and Ginger Ale. Grab it at the park or pick it up at your favorite local beer store or Manitoba Liquor Marts. Canadian Club, official sponsor of the Bombers, and the CC and Ginger is here as the new drink of the summer. And hey, I got the Breezy Bend lid on today. Was out yesterday afternoon with some of my pals with a beautiful evening round before the Manitoba Derby. My God, Craig and his team have done such a phenomenal job. The course could not be in more mint shape. Of course, they got the big Canadian Women's Mid-Am coming up next month, at the end of the month here at Breezy Bend. If you're thinking about an incredible spot for the golfing home for you and your family, think about one of Manitoba's top private clubs, Breezy Bend Golf and Country Club. Call our friend Corey Johnson about getting on the waiting list for next year, or find out more on everything Breezy Bend has waiting for you online at breezybend.ca. All right, let's get Jeff Hamilton in here to chop it up. Bombers talking much more. Hammer, what's going on? How was your long weekend?
My long weekend was awesome. I had the entire week off, so don't expect I'm going to know nothing about anything here. So status quo for the show. But
just
I spent
patio tips and ratings.
Patio tips and ratings, and I spent the weekend in Ottawa for a family reunion. So there's 36 Hamiltons in attendance. So clearly didn't get in a word edgewise, but back at it today, just at the train station right now, about to head to Montreal, get ready for a big Week 9 matchup between the Bombers and Alouettes, and trying to shake some of the cobwebs off and get back to business.
Well, the Bombers didn't have to shake off many cobwebs and get back to business. I mean, this was another difficult spot, playing a team coming off a bye. Bo Levi Mitchell had won a 14-2 record coming off the bye. We know there was a little bit of probably revenge on the mind of the Stamps after the game 2 weeks ago. And the Bombers get it done again without Jackson Jeffcoat, without Greg Ellingson, arguably two of their most important players. You sort of run out of superlatives to describe this team at times, Jeff. I mean, and the incredible is now almost commonplace for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, who are now 8-0 on the season.
So understanding fully that you're going to ask me a question like this or similar to it, I had thought about it heading into it. And I find it hilarious because over the last couple of weeks, we've all kind of predicted the Bombers, not demise, but their first loss, right? Last week it was, okay, I mean, Edmonton's hungry. They're not a good team, but surely the Bombers won't be able to go on the road and beat them. That wasn't nearly as questionable as BC earlier in the season, as Nathan Rourke, came out of the gates blazing with the BC Lions. Everyone thought that would be the first loss. Certainly this past weekend, as you mentioned, has the stats off the bye, and stats are a funny thing, right? You can find any stats to make an argument one way or the other. And certainly when you look at Bo Levi Mitchell's and the Calgary Stampeders, record after a bye, the Bombers being on the road again, the tough match that they had with the Stampeders a couple weeks ago in Winnipeg, it all kind of lined up. The names that are missing, as you mentioned, Greg Ellingson out another week along with Jackson Jeffcoat. It just looked like this would be the week, or that would be the week that the Bombers would fall. And sure enough, they find a way to get it done. I think they were dogs by kickoff. So just another example of don't count out the champs.
Plus 120 on the money line. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And then look at this week. I mean, is this the week that happens? I don't know, but I will tell you this. I mean, what an impressive start to the Bombers. That's Dr. Obvious there. But when you break down the schedule, I mean, this will be game 9, obviously this week, and it'll be road game 6. And now I'm sure you've talked about this on your show. We've talked about this, but get this done. Finish off that trifecta of road games on a positive note, and you're looking at a second half that I'm not going to call easy, because the Bombers won't treat it that way, but it will be, as far as schedule go, a lot easier than the first 9. That including 3 bye weeks. I think only 3. It would be only 3 away games and 6 at home, and we all know how dominant the Bombers are. So if you're a Bombers fan, it's all coming up blue and gold right now, and you got to be excited about where your team is right now and really where they're headed here.
Well, and especially, I mean, you mentioned, I mean, what we knew about the schedule in the second half compared to this grind that they've been in the first half, and the win. I mean, regardless of how they did it, getting that win in Calgary and being 2-0 against the Stamps and having the season series tiebreaker, I mean, absolutely monster when you think of how good Calgary is, the British Columbia Lions, the games that the Bombers will have playing going forward, and knowing that a home game in Winnipeg where the Bombers simply don't lose for a trip to the Grey Cup is very much in the sights already, even at this point of the season, after that win on Saturday.
It's safe for me and you to look at it that way. It's safe for the fans to look at it that way. But I can guarantee you one thing, that if you ask that question, as you mentioned, spoiler alert, Mike O'Shea doesn't live, half season by half season. He lives certainly, game by game, and you could argue minute by minute in a lot of ways. So certainly that second half, I mean, if you want to play games in the standings at this point, and we all know how, the East has struggled this season. And I don't know if we brought it up on the show last week or not, but how funny would it be the way things are set? If you want to play that game, where would we be, if the playoffs started today? Well, clearly Saskatchewan would be headed over to the East. And if they could do the impossible, as I heard you talking to Justin on the last segment, no one has even gotten to the Grey Cup in the crossover, but let's play hypothetical even further and get the Riders there. Well, if the Bombers are able to win their one home game, assuming that they, obviously capture the West, you're looking at a Bomber Riders Grey Cup with Bombers in the dressing room of Riderville, because it's the West team this year. So it doesn't matter who's in the game, it's who's leading their division. And as I continue to say this, I feel like we did do this last week, but I don't even care, because it's just the thought of it alone, whether you're a fan, whether you're media, whether you're, whatever, wherever you find yourself on the objective scale, is a hilarious potential ending to what's been a pretty solid season for Winnipeg and the rest of the league, really.
It is the juiciest possibility going forward. And I mean, we've always talked about this before. I mean, West teams that are clearly better than the East teams going across in the crossover and not even getting out of that first game often, never mind getting to the East final. But the potential of it being Winnipeg, and I did see it pointed out. The Bombers won the first preseason ever at Mosaic Field. The Bombers won the first regular season game ever at Mosaic Field. They won the first playoff game at Mosaic Field. And it would
second
only
playoff game against.
Yeah.
Was there a second one? There was a second one, wasn't there? I mean, I think they got both playoff games there.
And then, of course, the first Grey Cup there would be pretty darn nice as well.
Yeah.
The case going in, though, I mean, this is an incredibly short week. It'll be another day of 1 day of practice. And I mean, part of me thinks that the Bombers have just been so workmanlike and professional. They've done this repeatedly, beating better teams than the Montreal Alouettes before. They should be ready to go. I can't help have this sinking feeling, though, that this is going to maybe be a little bit more like the Toronto game earlier this season than a couple of the games that they've run away with. I mean, I don't think this is an easy spot for the Bombers, and I don't expect them just to run up and down the field all night and blow the Alouettes out. I think this could be close.
Yeah, I think there's certainly potential for that. The Bombers have had tough games, in Montreal in the past. So if you look at those records, their record might favor them. But if I look back in the 7 years I've covered this league, it hasn't been an easy place to get out of. So, there's always that potential. There is the potential of any given Sunday, in this case Thursday, obviously, that another team just shows up. And I think the most important factor in that conversation is you already have teams in the East playing like it's playoff football, because the jockeying for position, if you look at what's played out through the first 8 weeks here, is that there probably is only going to be two teams that are going to be coming out of the East. So it makes it even all the more important for those victories to happen. I mean, look at Ottawa. I mean, everyone's celebrating. Well, I didn't say everyone. Maybe I was just doing that in my head, but big victory for Ottawa, who's now 1-6, and they're not completely out of it. So the idea that at this point in the season, we always talk about how Labor Day is kind of when the real season starts. Well, if you're in the East Division, you got to start putting your foot on the gas. I was going to say take it off the gas. You can't take it off the gas, but some teams need to put it on and figure it out. So at this point, as we head into week 9, Montreal's desperate. And I mean, they're an angry club. Just look at what's happened with the Alouettes this year. Harry Jones is gone. They're coming off a tough loss to Hamilton. Andrew Trevor Harris is probably pretty pissed off from getting pulled from the last play of the game. That's a tough one to sit on for the Alouettes. So if you look at what they've done this season, it is a pretty challenging situation for them, and they have to show up hungry every game. So it's the Bombers' job to, it's clearly not easy to win on the road. It's not easy to win week to week, as despite what the Bombers have been doing this season. So they got to be prepared. And again, I just always go back to the fact that this team, if they're anything, it's prepared. And that goes right down to Mike O'Shea. And it's really the mindset, right? It's the leadership, it's the coaching, it's all those things that these guys literally come into every week. It's, you call it brainwash, Kool-Aid, all the positive, connotations to those things, that everyone's dialed in, everyone's ready to go. And whether you have Greg Ellingson out, or whether you have Jackson Jeffcoat out, or Kyrie Wilson, or Nick Dembski, who just returned last week, you have all these, significant players on the roster coming in and out of the lineup. And really there really is no drop off in play. All is a testament to preparation. But at this point in time, and you got to wonder, with no bye weeks, when some teams have already had a couple, where this team's at, mentally and physically when it comes to exhaustion. And I just say, if you can get through this one here, if you can get into Montreal and not get pulled away from some of these scenes and sights of the beautiful city, there's no reason why the Bombers can't continue to roll here and continue what's been a pretty incredible season when you consider what they've done in the last couple of years.
I'm interested in your perspective on the game on Saturday. Was that the most complete game that you've seen the Bombers play this year? And the reason I asked that,
complimentary football,
I mean,
as far
just in every, I mean, you had a running game that stepped up, had 100 yards early. I think we've seen how important that is for Zach Collaros. I mean, the two big games on the road this year, BC, Calgary, they established the run early, and it allowed Zach to have his best play of the entire season in the second half of both of those games. But on top of it all, no turnovers, hardly any penalties, no sacks allowed. I mean, I look at that game considering who they were playing, who they had in the lineup, who they were missing the lineup, and I'd have a hard time pointing out anything that the Bombers didn't do very well. And full credit to Calgary, because they played a heck of a game too.
Yeah, and I think that might be, when you look at the game last week against Calgary and you compare it to the whatever week it was, 3-4 against BC, I think you can look at those two games and call them pretty comparable as far as complementary football, but maybe the edge really is not allowing any quarterback sacks, the discipline play after week after week after week of, battling it out on the field without a break, to not kind of lose your cool. We all know that mental fatigue leads to, maybe some pretty stupid decisions. I mean, that's about as clean as it gets, obviously. So, certainly an impressive game. It seems like with this team, and again, I guess go back to, if you're a fan of this club, it's just another reason why you got to be so happy with this organization, is that when it seems like when the cards are stacked against them, you have your gamers like, Zach Collaros, like, Dalton Schoen's proving to be this year, like Willie Jefferson, like Adam Bighill. I mean, go on and on and on, with the names, and, I won't, but you could. It seems like it brings out the best in them. It seems like adversity brings out the best of them. 2019, 2 games on the road, right? To playoffs to get to the Grey Cup, 3 in total. That adversity brought out the best in the Bombers. And, you look at last year's Grey Cup. I mean, the adversity of being a favorite in some ways. I mean, that teetered a little bit with it being in Hamilton, of course, but the way they handled it, the way they handle all their business, they're just a well-oiled machine. So, we keep on, I'll go back to one of my first comments. We keep going back to wondering, is this the week? Because it's not impossible, but realistically, the Bombers aren't going to go 18-0. It's a very, very challenging thing. So you wonder, when are they going to have an off game? Or when's the lull going to be? Or when's the margin of error going to be just small enough so that they don't squeeze out one of these victories, which you can look back at the schedule and say, okay, there are some games the Bombers shouldn't have lost. Well, that was what you were saying about Calgary before the Bombers became the juggernaut of the CFL, and they weren't playing their best, and they were getting 1 point, 2 point, 3 point, 4 point victories over teams that maybe they shouldn't have won. So everything, all the things we've been talking about, all the qualities that make up a good team and make up what the Bombers have shown over the last few years, I'd say one of the greatest things is their ability to, use the odds when the odds seem to be stacked against them, whether it's channeling adversity or whether it's ignoring it completely. I'm not 100% sure which one, because you can kind of look at both and make an argument for either. Regardless of what it is, this team's found a way to make it happen when it matters. Again, when the odds are stacked against them, when they're supposed to win, when they're not supposed to win. At this point, I don't think this makes much sense to bet against the Bombers.
Yeah, whatever it is, they have set an incredible standard right now and just continue to get the job done. Winnipeg at Montreal Thursday night, and then a rematch a week Thursday here in Winnipeg, and then the Bombers will finally get one of their first 3 byes. And when you look at the second half of the season, Jeff, I mean, there's some big games, the back-to-back with the Riders and some other games mixed in there, but having played their first 10 games essentially over the course of 8 or 9 weeks, and then to have that sort of break, rest, recovery, I mean, they couldn't have put themselves in a better situation to do it again. Jeff Hamilton's with us from the Winnipeg Free Press. Not a lot to talk about on the Jets front this week. You want to break down the Leon Gavanka re-signing? I mean, have you heard anything? Are things pretty quiet right now over the course of the past week? Because this is normally a kind of a quieter time, and I'm sure at the long weekend, maybe some guys went away, but it's pretty clear that there's still a lot of work to be done. I don't think for a second that the intention is to come back with the roster as is right now and think that they're going to have a bunch of different results. I mean, have you heard anything right now, or is it kind of quiet?
You know what? You hear a lot, right? Because it's easy to kind of go to these press conferences with Kevin Cheveldayoff and be, exhausted with some of the answers and be upset with some of the, the lack or the inaction, the lack of deals that's happening. And it's like, okay, same story or whatever. But the reality is they field calls all the time. They feel, it's not just the Jets going or Kevin Cheveldayoff going out and being like, I'm interested in this guy. It's a lot of teams around the NHL coming to the Jets and saying, you guys look like a bit of a mess. Would you want me to take this guy off your hands? Like, what is your vision for your team? We're hearing, quality guys being talked about either wanting to leave the organization or guys wanting to, to find a new place or just being rumored to be on the trading block. So the calls have come in. It's just the Jets, and we've seen this over the last few years, is we've seen this team not want to look like they've lost a trade. And I think that's getting exposed this season to a new level in that, I think the Jets are strongly concerned about the PR. Sorry, guys, a little bit of a, party back here, but I think the Jets are concerned with optics. I think they're concerned with bad headlines. I still think the Jets are figuring out what their identity is. And that is an unfortunate situation to be in the early August, in the dog days of summer, where a lot of the actions already happened. A lot of the dance partners, have left the floor. So it's irrelevant to throw out what you might have heard or toss around potential trades. The good news, I suppose, if you will, is that there's still time. I mean, the closer you get to September, the less likely deals are to be made. Unless there is like a toxic situation on a team, you don't usually deal them close to training camp. Guys want some clarity, and not have a pit in their stomach all summer wondering where they might go, right? I mean, you just do that as a common courtesy as an organization. But that's still not there yet. I mean, there's still potential for things to happen. But I will say this, it's getting more and more to the point where this organization is running it back. And that to me is evidence of what I think is an absolutely brutal offseason by this organization, just to stand still. Like this isn't speculation anymore about the issues in the dressing room. This isn't speculation anymore about, the need to change up the leadership core. Like this is hard facts. And we're still here sitting seemingly with a GM with his hand sitting on his hands, not doing anything to address this. So is this a situation where he's just not capable of finding a dance partner and swinging a trade? He's not capable of moving players out that need to be moved out or players to be brought in? I don't know what it is. Maybe it's all of it. Maybe it's some of it. But I mean, the reality is I think if you go into next season, quote unquote, running it back with a lot of the same people you had from what was, the worst year arguably the worst year of your organizations since it's come back in 2011, and you get same results, you better be damn sure that it was just an anomaly last year, that COVID was an issue, that some of the drama has been repaired. Because if you come back and you miss the playoffs again and you didn't do anything over the offseason, I don't know. Like that seat's only getting hotter, but we'll see what happens.
You used an interesting term earlier about toxic situation. And I mean, this is just me speaking. This is not anyone else telling me this, but I mean, the fact of the matter that we've heard the reports of Blake Wheeler being shopped and that he was looking to go kind of tells me that they have thought that this is somewhat of a toxic situation. It would be better if all parties went to separate ways. My take on this right now, much like some of the other ones, is Cheveldayoff could move players for what's on the table right now, but that it's not good enough for them. And that you can talk about whether it's the public perception of what the trades are, which certainly I guess will have some inkling to it. But I mean, if the Jets think that they're going to make their team better, I think they go and do that. But the Wheeler situation, I mean, I've said this before for a few weeks. I mean, if you're trading Blake Wheeler, you're not doing it from a quote-unquote hockey perspective. What's coming back for Blake Wheeler is not going to be as good as what Blake Wheeler is on the ice. And I mean, this topic is all about the leadership, the culture of the team, and everything outside it, as opposed to what happens when player X is on the ice. Which brings me to the question that if they realize that, like, that's not changing over the course of the summer. I mean, no amount of sit-down interviews at the start of training camp is going to completely change the atmosphere, whether it be public or, more importantly, internally. So is this a matter of waiting this out to see if they can get more for it, and then if it's not the case, sort of biting the bullet and making a trade involving Blake Wheeler that frankly doesn't look very good, but accomplishes the goal of opening up the room to some younger players to sort of, have a little bit more oxygen that maybe was taken up by the captain for all those years?
No. Like, I don't think this is a situation where, you go through the potential options, you go through shopping, and all of a sudden you're like, okay, you know what? We tried to play our best hand. Now we'll take what we can get. I think that's not going to be the situation with the Winnipeg Jets. I think that they're, garnering a bit of a reputation here of being tough trade partners, tough. And that's not all on the Jets. I mean, they need to be tough trade partners. They can't get fleeced. They can't give away a guy in Blake Wheeler who, is he a massive cap hit? Sure. Is he still a decent player? For sure. I mean, he's not worth probably his $8-point-something million cap hit this season, but he is a quality player. So you don't want to get rid of him for nothing. But at the same time, you need to identify what the future of your team looks like. And I think the biggest issue with ownership and management right now is just deciding on who the next core is, because the next core isn't Blake Wheeler. The next core, is it Mark Scheifele? Is he going to be back in 2 years? Probably not. So if you're looking at a core, you're looking at guys like what would have been Pierre-Luc Dubois, and he's no longer in that situation. I think you can make a strong argument, but you're looking at guys like Nick Ehlers, Kyle Connor, Adam Lowry, Josh Morrissey, Cole Perfetti, and then you're trying to figure out who works around that. And there might be lean years here. We might be heading into a situation where it's going to be a couple tough years. And I know some fans won't like that. I know some fans will, but I just don't think the Jets are willing to give up on it. And I think that what they're looking at is how much promise they felt existed this time last year, where it was being dubbed the summer of Chevy, that he, found these right pieces, that all they need to shore up was the defensive side of things. They felt like they did that. They haven't done anything since. Now, I don't think that they weren't willing to, just to be clear on this. Like, when I said it seemingly looks like, Kevin Cheveldayoff is sitting on his hands, I don't believe that to be the case. I just think that they're, again, really in a tough situation of fan apathy, of optics. Like, look, Barry Trotz was, well, teams like Philadelphia and Vegas said, thanks a lot for letting us know you don't plan on coaching this year. The Winnipeg Jets said, we understand what you're saying, but we want to give you more time. And that was, obviously it was to get a good coach, but I would argue it was just as much to get a good headline and shift some of the narrative that existed over the last year, and particularly this summer. Like, inject some positives here. And I think that from a business perspective, to tear things down or to make, big changes and almost maybe not ensure, but make it more difficult to punch your ticket back into the playoffs, I don't think they believe would go well with their season ticket holders. And so I think they're stuck in a situation where if we can't get what we want, let's keep what we have and pray that it pans out this year. And I think the problem is I think last year's lack of success wasn't the result of, COVID restrictions or tough schedules. Clearly, there was an issue there with Paul Maurice leaving during the season, so I'm not going to pretend like that didn't have an effect, but Paul Maurice left for a reason, right? I mean, he couldn't get those guys pulling in the same direction, and that wasn't, and look at Paul Maurice. He said he was going to be gone at the end of the season. And so that just I think strengthens my next point here, is I think this has been a bit of a slow burn for years, and to think that somehow, guys going their separate ways and maybe a few of them working out together in certain cities, or guys heading off to Europe and kind of getting out of Dodge and wanting to come back a little bit hungrier for the season. Is that going to be enough to take this group over the top? Like, this team wasn't even close to the playoffs last season. I mean, we had that painful stretch down where it was like, we're going to keep fighting until we're mathematically eliminated. And that was excruciating for fans. And so how can you, as a fan, trust heading into this season if nothing was done, that all of a sudden the results are going to change, and all of a sudden this team's going to click? Because what I said last week it's more than just talent to win the Stanley Cup. And that's the goal here. The goal isn't to win one series and feel good about yourselves or two series. It's to make deep runs. Only one team wins the Stanley Cup. So not everyone's going to fulfill their goal, but to take an honest run at it and have a real chance and to be dubbed a contender, you need to have more than just talent on the ice. You need to have a cohesiveness in the locker room that is, that allows everyone to flourish, from the top paid guy or the top level guy to the guy who's scraping to get in the lineup. And that just doesn't exist in Winnipeg.
Well, exactly. And I think the biggest part of that is why we've been hearing about Blake Wheeler being on the block all year long. So if that doesn't happen, and everyone knows why the Jets have been trying to do it, how do you bring that back? Like, what are the first couple days of training camp do it? I mean, we always sort of, made jokes about the
best training camp ever. What do you mean?
The PR rehab interview that Blake had a couple weeks ago, where he talked about a year ago, I was the legendary leader and now I'm the problem. I mean, can you do that again? I mean, like, we talk a lot about the optics and PR and whatnot. I mean, as I said before, a Blake Wheeler trade does not help this team on the ice, as far as, I mean, you're losing a very productive player. But there's a reason why this has been talked about so much and why they've been trying to do it. So what happens if you don't do it, Jeff?
Well, and that's the question. Can you do something? Does Rick Bowness, with his experience, have the ability to alter the same lineup positively? And would that, and can you go back with the same leadership group? I know we spent a lot of time, talking about Blake Wheeler and his impact with this team. I don't think that the demise of this team over years is strictly on Blake Wheeler's shoulders, but he wears the C. And if you're trying to change the leadership group, he unfortunately needs to be the first to go. So but can you do that without actually saying goodbye? Can you convince Blake Wheeler, who has said those sound bites in the past, who is, has kind of done, some pretty, woe is me interviews about his, because he has been dealt with, he has faced a lot of criticism, not just from our conversations on here, but, in the pages, on the radio, over TV, with, media locally, nationally.
Probably internally too, if they're trying to trade him, to be perfectly honest.
Absolutely.
Doesn't matter what we say.
In the sense that, but the thing is that what preceded that was years of absolute respect for Blake Wheeler. And so everybody has their time. And we've talked about this in the past. Blake Wheeler's done a lot of great things for this organization. He helped them get to a point, but I think that point has reached its max, and it's gone beyond what he's capable of doing. And it just gets to a point where you need to shift the culture in the locker room. You just need to shift the voices. You need to shift, you need to give ownership to, greater ownership to other players. I mean, it's tough to compare the CFL with the NHL, and particularly with the Bombers, with the Jets. But look what happens when you have a leadership core that everyone respects. And I think Blake's leadership abilities was not, go in there and have heart to hearts with all these guys and reach them on an emotional level and have that respect. It was, look at me every single day. Look at me compete at practice every single day. Look at me compete in every game. Look at me prepare, care about hockey, hold people to the same standards. And it just doesn't work here. His way doesn't work. And it's not because he's a bad person. It's not because he's a bad player. He's just not a fit for this team anymore. And he's part of an older group of guys that just don't understand the younger guys and never will. It's a classic.
Well, the younger guys have been used as excuses a number of times.
You can't teach old dogs new tricks. And I think that falls nicely into Wheeler's leadership ability at this point in his career. Like, the team's just getting younger. So the things that annoy you are just going to be more abundant. You need a better voice in that locker room, a better leadership core that can bring everybody together and hold everybody accountable in a way that is much different than what's being done.
So if he's back, if they don't get a trade done, and most of these guys, I mean, it's very small additions or changes, and we get to training camp, and now it's Rick Bowness's show. Is Blake Wheeler the captain in game number 1 of 82?
Not my choice. I don't know. I mean, I guess you can say, how can he be? Should he be? I mean, those will certainly be the questions, right? I mean, at one point,
the easiest thing is always to do nothing, which is just maintain the status quo.
But the easy is rarely the right way.
I agree. I absolutely agree.
To me, it's one of those things where, yeah, it's I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what the conversations have. I don't know if between I mean, when Bonus talked early on, looked like it was a couple, read text messages, but unanswered. So like, I mean, clearly that's changed, and you put a lot, you can't put any stock into that.
He said he had a good chat with him when he came on the show a couple of weeks ago.
He came on the show. So, and he also said to you that he was quote unquote ready to go. Can you picture Blake Wheeler taking
like ready to go as in leave Winnipeg, or ready to go as in start the season here?
Sure, but I mean, I just mean in general speaking, like, what's the odds of him getting to a situation where it's like, okay, can I, or would want to be willing to take a step back? I mean, we've seen in the past. I mean, he's got very defensive about his ability to score goals and his position in the lineup. I mean, how often have people in the analytics world, or just fans, or people in general, just have mocked up their lineups and have Blake Wheeler contributing on a third line? Well, I don't think Blake Wheeler is open to being a third line player. Is he open to being a backseat player as far as the leadership goes? I guess time will tell, but I think that would be a tough pill to swallow, considering everything he's done for this organization up to this point.
Yeah, I'm and people that have been watching this show all through last year, I mean, I've said a number of times when we were talking about these key decisions at the end of the season, and a lot of it circled and centered out of our conversations about Mark Scheifele, and the fact that I thought he was as good as gone at the end of the season, the way the season went with what he was saying, that I did say I thought that Blake Wheeler could be part of the solution here going forward if he could take a step back. I mean, I'm less confident of that now than I was before. And I think it's partly things that we've heard throughout the year, partly what the team has been obviously trying to do. And I don't think they do that if they believe that he could be part of that. So it's going to make for a very interesting few days leading into training camp. And certainly if camp does start as is, you guys can figure out whether it's Wheeler first or Scheifele or Dubois stepping in front of the media, and it'll be quite a big day. Hey, just listen before we go. We talked about it last week. Things have quieted down a little bit, but a very interesting comment, coming out of the Hockey Canada aftermath. You got the World Juniors starting next week. Scott Smith under intense pressure to step down. I mean, I think it's all but a done deal that we do see a change of leadership in Hockey Canada, potentially all the way to the board level. The young woman that made the accusations against the players in 2018 has done an interview with the Globe and Mail. We've seen that today. I mean, just I know you're very much in tune to this story, Jeff. What's the latest on this, and how much are we going to be hearing about this when, these top young under 20 players get ready to play that World Juniors that was supposed to be last Christmas, coming up in the next couple of weeks in Edmonton?
I'm still a bit flabbergasted that Canada's in it, to be honest with you, just because I think you're welcoming a bit of a nightmare situation and everyday focus on Hockey Canada. There's obviously a lot of pressure on TSN too, but I mean, the latest is everything you just said there. I mean, the young woman that's come forward and shared her feelings about it. There was a polygraph test that she took. Now I know that isn't, some people say it's junk science or whatever, but I'm not going to say it'd be worse necessarily, but she passed that. She's added, she won't be talking to Hockey Canada or I think the representatives of the defendants, in the sense that she's already offered additional information beyond what she's already offered. That's been extensive, evidence of text messages and communications and videos and all these things, and added her own, added to her own testimony, all those things that are sworn affidavits. So, she's done a lot. I know she, on that topic, she talked about she doesn't love the fact that it's become national news, that this is a thing a country is, sports fans and people like, and general public has taken a great interest in. This is something that, something that's not easy on the person, right? It's not easy at all. And so, getting to Hockey Canada, yeah, Scott Smith needs to go. I don't know if I agree with the whole board going, because the way I've seen it and read it and view it is that, a lot of those conversations were viewed in a vacuum of the chair of the board and the executive. So, the board wasn't called together for an emergency meeting after this. They didn't vote on certain things. So they were kind of left out of the dark. And I'd also mention this. The board, although not complete, has done some good work in recent years. They've added women to the board. They've added people of color to the board. They've added people with resumes that go beyond sports, right? So there has been, movement in there. So I guess my hope is that they don't just do a clean sweep of the board of governors per se, but I think they need to do a clean sweep of the executive, the people who have been around, the Scott Smiths who've been around for decades, who have been part of this mess, and really, in my opinion, are looking for two things: to maintain power over what is a very important, part of our and game of our country, and an opportunity to, fix their errors. I don't think they've earned the opportunity to make right by this. I think they need to go, and they need to go soon. And I think that's inevitable. I think we're finally seeing not just public pressure, we're seeing political pressure, we're seeing financial pressure from sponsors. We're seeing people that are working together to create change that, I'll be quite frank with you, a year ago seemed impossible. And certainly for decades was impossible. They were untouchable. Nobody knew where Hockey Canada got all their money, what they did with all their money. Like, they were a hidden organization. They weren't. They went by the beat of their own drum and made their own decisions in vacuums and weren't accountable. Did not have to show all their expenses and where things going. Now they have to do that, and it looks gross. So to see these guys think that they're the right people to move this ship forward it's cringy to just even listen to, let alone believe or suggest. And so at this point, I think we're just headed to, we're going to get past this World Junior Tournament. I know the IHF thinks it's important for other teams to get those development. We've already seen COVID strip a lot of players of development opportunities and scouting opportunities. And you can make the argument, obviously, that the kids that are in it this year are not, they're just kids, or they're just people who have, haven't been part of this or been swept up in it. Personally, I think it's going to be a tough week for Canada. I think it's going to be a tough situation for Hockey Canada, obviously, and it'll be interesting to see what the fallout is. But by the end of summer, if there isn't new leadership in Hockey Canada, well, I don't know what's going to happen, to be quite honest.
No doubt. You're going to be in Montreal for the game on Thursday?
Yeah, they're calling me out right now to get close to the train. So heading from Ottawa to Montreal right now, and be there this evening and ready for tomorrow, or I guess Thursday's game.
Perfect. Well, I'm going to be away for a couple days at the end of the week. Maybe we'll get Remo to hit you up, and you can help him out for a few minutes at some point over Thursday or Friday, depending on what your schedule is, and pop in. But great conversation as always, Jeff. Have a safe ride in the lap of luxury on that train, and enjoy Montreal. I'm sure you might be able to find a good time or two leading into the game.
Just another wicked day in my kick-ass life, Huss. Thanks for having me on, and shout out to the commenters. Let's see if this Bomber run can't continue to be magical. It is something special to witness, and I'm happy for everyone in Winnipeg that as we shift to Jets and a little bit of disappointing talk, at least there's one team carrying their weight and more, and something to be excited about while we still have a couple weeks of sunshine.
No doubt. Thanks so much, Jeff. There it is, Jeff Hamilton, at Jeff K. Hamilton on Twitter, and make sure to check out his work covering the Blue Bombers in the world of sports in the pages of the Winnipeg Free Press. And as always, when we talk Bombers on the show, we do it for our friends at Princess Auto, who will be welcoming Bomber fans back to the Princess Auto tailgate party a week Thursday when the Bombers finally return. And we'll just be getting going because the Bombers do play 6 of their final 9 games at home at IG Field. Of course, the Princess Auto tailgate party gets going at 5:30, 2 hours before game time. Discounted beers, hot dogs, drinks, DJ Finesse spinning, prizes from the Princess Auto crew. Definitely the place to be. And of course, Princess Auto is also the place where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. 2 Winnipeg locations, Panet Road, Portage Avenue West, and you can always shop online 24/7, 365 at princessauto.com. If you're thinking about a new vehicle, you know where to go. Head on down to our friends at Knott Autocorp at Waverly and McGillivray and check out everything they've got on the lot, or talk to a Knott expert about the car of your dreams. Why not get into that car at a great price with the help of the Knott team? They've got a bunch of Teslas on the lot too if you're thinking about going electric. They've also got a great Tesla experience program, teach you everything you need to know when you're considering moving from a traditional vehicle to an electric vehicle. It's all there at Knott Autocorp, Waverly and McGillivray, or check them out online at knott.ca. Another great summer weekend. Another great weekend made a little bit better with the great taste of Little Brown Jug. I had a few 1919s on the weekend, always my favorite. But with so many great new summer beers, you might want to go and check out the summer good times variety pack right now, available at Little Brown Jug. Your best place to do that is pop down and see him at William Avenue in the Exchange. But you can also pick it up at your favorite local beer store or at liquor marts as well, or check them out online at littlebrownjug.ca. And by the way, speaking of Little Brown Jug, here's a little teaser, folks. I said I'd let you know this week. Mark your calendars for Thursday, September 1st, the first ever Winnipeg Sports Talk Sports Trivia Night. I'll be hosting it. We're going to put together a great program for a couple hours at Little Brown Jug on September 1st. So right now, talk to your crew, get ready. We'll let you know how to reserve a table for that event, but mark it down September 1st at Little Brown Jug. Really looking forward to that. And Remis mentioned it earlier, but a huge thanks from WST to Big Nick and Nikki over at the Nick and Nikki DQ group for that wonderful cake for Evan's 3rd birthday. There's nothing better than a DQ ice cream cake for any sort of party, especially during the summer. And they can hook you up at any of the 4 Nick and Nikki DQs. And while you're there, check out the amazing new Blizzard flavors, the delicious stack burgers, and more. And of course, Nick and Nikki DQ have 4 locations: DQ Niverville, DQ Northgate, DQ Polo Park, and DQ St. Anne's. And the Winnipeg locations are available on your favorite delivery app as well. And hit them up on Instagram at DQ Manitoba if you would like to make an order in advance to pick up quick and easy at any of the 4 Nick and Nikki DQs. All right, great stuff with Hammer and Justin Dunk. Let's get Remis back in here because we've got a lot to get to. Remo, I knew the Bombers were going to dominate the conversations today, and frankly, I am just fine with that. Not a lot going on over the last few days for the Winnipeg Jets as we still wait to see how things shake up. But the bottom line is 8-0 is 8-0, and after a game like that Saturday night against the Calgary Stampeders, the Bombers should dominate the conversations on WST today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember a couple of years ago, Huss, when the Bombers, they were the team falling short against Calgary. They played so well. You'd be like, oh, they played Calgary great and, just lose. And this year, 8-0, back-to-back Grey Cup champions, looking like favorites for the three-peat. I don't know if we're sitting here appreciating how great this Bomber success is. You remember watching Calgary thinking, oh, I wish the Bombers could win like them, and they're the model franchise in the CFL right now, and it doesn't matter who's out, or it doesn't matter if you're playing well or having a bad game. They're finding ways to win over and over again, and it's always in different ways. It could be the defense, it could be the offense, special teams, everything.
Yeah, I mean, I don't take it for granted. I find myself, and I did it again on Saturday, having a couple beers with the fellas after the game, going just basically in awe of what they have put together. And hey, maybe if you just moved to Winnipeg a couple years ago and started following the team, you sort of get used to it. But I mean, for people like myself and you that are from here that have followed this team for decades and have been through all of the lows and the Joe Mack era and just how far away success seemed at that time, to be where we are right now with the quarterback and Zach Collaros that just wins every damn game, and a defense that is continually raising the bar and rewriting the standard for great, consistent CFL defenses. And then to have new players like Ellingson and now Dalton Schoen come in and show out the way they are. And for a game like Brady Oliveira had, I mean, you cannot take it for granted. This is the most special team and the most special period, I think, in my lifetime of Blue Bomber football. And even if you were old enough to be around to even sort of remember the success they had in the 80s, it's very different than right now. I mean, the Bombers are clearly the class of the league, and everyone else has been chasing them. They've been doing it for 2 seasons. No one's caught them. And at 8-0 right now, heading into Montreal, they are the standard right now in the Canadian Football League. And that game on Saturday, Remo, was an absolute exclamation point on why Winnipeg has been the team for the better part of 2+ years in the CFL.
Yeah, I look at the CFL standings and you look at all the teams, and it's true that the Bombers are up here, like above the screen, and then there's a large gap, and then I think then Calgary and BC are in there. They're pretty close, and like another gap, and then I think Saskatchewan in there, and then
Saskatchewan and the East.
And then, like, is Edmonton at the very bottom? I'm not sure, but there's the Bombers, a large gap, then the two BC Calgary, then another gap, and then you figure out who the worst is. Like, you can argue if Toronto is like any good with their 3 wins. I mean, Toronto made the playoffs last year too, and I think they won their division. We were no one really thought they were any good. But you look at they're first in the East. You look at their point differential, like minus 35. Like there is not one team in the East with a positive. And I guess you were always going to have these conversations now. Like, why are we even having divisions? Well, like, why is it this way? Is it because we've always done like, let's put the best teams in the playoffs? Like, why should an East team have a home playoff game when Saskatchewan is going to have a better record than all of them? It's stupid.
The funny thing is that this has been, I mean, I don't know how many times we had this conversation on 1290, but I mean, it dates back
forever.
Years.
Yes.
Years. I mean, the East, well, I mean, we'd have to look. I don't have this off the top of my head, but how many times in the last 10 years has a Western team crossed over into the East? An East team's never crossed over into the West, I don't believe. And it seems to happen almost every year. And this was the year. I mean, I remember we were going through the win totals for the teams in the East Stream, and every team was in between 8.5 and 9.5. We thought, wow, this is going to be great. We should have some real parity, but a real competitive East and, no terrible teams. Well, here we are. The Bombers are 8-0, and Ottawa just won their first game of the season, and yet they're still right in the thick of things in the Eastern Division. So I'm sort of with you. The fact that we've got, it would be so easy to have an even schedule with a home and away game against every team in the league, and then the 2 extra games to be rotated home and away amongst the teams that are traditionally in your division or potentially amongst some rivals, or just basically evenly distribute them every year so it's a completely even schedule. It makes too much sense. I mean, I do know that the history of the Canadian Football League is the best team in the East going against the best team in the West. But with the fact that the crossover's been in, I see no reason why you wouldn't want to get the best 2 teams in the Grey Cup. And I mean, the last few years, I mean, the last few years, Hamilton was a heck of a team, and they were favored in the first Grey Cup and had that lead late. But after watching what's happened so far in the Canadian Football League, if you told me, hey, we're going to make this tweak and it could be Winnipeg and Calgary or Winnipeg and BC in the Grey Cup, I would take that. But as of right now, I think your biggest and best game of the season is going to be the West Final, which is hopefully right here in Winnipeg at IG Field.
Yeah, and I'm for fairness, and if the team with the crossover, has a better record than all of the East, let them have a home playoff game. Like, what are we doing? Why are we having divisions?
Well, let's change that next year. We don't want to help the Riders too much.
Right. No. Well, I am looking forward. The Bombers have 3 games against the Riders. You got the Banjo Bowl, the Labor Day Classic, and then there's another one at the end of September. So we'll see how it goes. But I think a lot of people are starting to realize Cody Fajardo, not the guy. And what's their record here? Yeah, 4-4. So yeah, they are like middle of the pack team. But we'll get a good look at them next month.
Yeah, well, first things first, we're going to get a good look at the Montreal Alouettes with back-to-back games in Montreal on Thursday and then back in Winnipeg. We finally get the Bomber home game for the first time since that thriller between the Bombers and the Stamps on July 15th. August 11th, and as we mentioned, Princess Auto tailgate party before the game just outside the zone. All right, there's a bunch of other things I do want to get to before we get to
Ric Flair's last
bet
match.
Lines. Yeah, okay, well, we will get to that in a minute. But, and I mentioned this briefly with Jeff, but for folks that just popped on, huge story right now in the National Football League. And Deshaun Watson gets a 6-game suspension from the independent arbitrator. It was a female judge who I think was maybe selected because of the fact that she wouldn't be thought of as having any preconceived notions to, maybe towards the defendant in this case, Deshaun Watson, but did point out that has not been charged with any crimes. As Jeff pointed out, most of the things have been settled and for all intents and purposes paid off. But a 6-game suspension has rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. It will be interesting to see whether the National Football League appeals this and then Roger Goodell has to rule on it, which is the rules by the CBA, and whether the suspension is increased. Bottom line is that Deshaun Watson could and probably will be playing at some point this year, but it's going to be Jacoby Brissett starting for the Cleveland Browns. And at some point, I mean, Cleveland has put, $230 million in Deshaun Watson's hands and traded 3 first-round picks. They've essentially mortgaged the franchise for this guy, and it hasn't been as smooth as I'm sure they'd expected when they made that move.
The stuff that he was doing, allegedly, getting all these different massage therapists and, whatever, being accused over and over again of sexual harassment and sexual assault. So disgusting. Such a terrible human being, allegedly. And for the 6 games, it just doesn't seem right. And I know they're going with what the rule book says, but I don't think anyone thinks that this guy should have only 6 games. And it seems like, for all this, he's going to get off with little to no punishment. The Browns are going to be fine. It's pretty, the allegations pretty.
Should it matter that it's gone to 2 grand juries and he hasn't been charged yet? I mean, the one thing I'll say, and I'm sort of on your side, I mean, the stuff that he's alleged to have done, and he's paid off or made settlements with 23 people. It's pretty clear something happened. But at the same time, I mean, we're so anxious to cancel everybody, for lack of a better term, right now. When it goes through to a judge and they make their ruling based on precedent, history, and all the evidence at hand, and then it's not good enough. I mean, I have a hard time wondering what the right thing to do go forward, but at the same time, I agree that it is somewhat absurd, especially the fact that the way they did his contract, his salary is only $1 million this year. So he's basically not going to lose hardly any money, as opposed to if his actual salary, not the entire signing bonus, was chipped away and he lost 6 of 17 games.
Yeah, it just seems all around. If you're good, really good at football, Huss, and you're at a star, premium position like quarterback, the rules don't apply to you. And I think people are it's disappointing that he would only get 6 games. But, I guess they didn't have any reason to do more based on what the past rules have been. So I think he doesn't mean you can't think he's a, gross human being, but I know he's going to be playing in the NFL. And look, if he means, I can start him in fantasy, I'll start him too. If, he's low priced on DFS and he's value.
Listen, I think he should be suspended. That being said, if he's got a good price in DraftKings, he's on my club.
If he's in a high team total, I like trying to win money. So
I know you're joking, but unfortunately, that sort of is the truth, and that is part of the reason why the NFL is the engine that can take all these hits and doesn't even miss a beat. I mean, when Deshaun Watson's not there, people will be talking about everything else. When he's back, it'll be all about him and what happens with the Cleveland Browns. And despite themselves, despite Roger Goodell and all the things that he's done while he's been running, it just seems like there's absolutely nothing can stop the National Football League. And, despite this is somewhat of a distasteful story, I think, for everyone to be talking about and have to deal with over and over again, especially for the people. And I feel sorry for Browns fans, especially female Browns fans, this is the savior of your team coming in there. You're pretty much right in the fact that, talk to us about how he's doing in fantasy in a few weeks. And, for the vast majority of football fans, as sad as this is, people are going to forget this quite quickly, I'd imagine. Although he'll always be be holding this one over his head.
I don't know. Yeah, they're just the sheer number of, I think it's allegations. It's unheard of. I feel horrible for the women who had to, you think you're doing some treatment on a guy and does what he's alleged to have doing. It's horrifying. Horrifying.
It is. And I guess there's been reports there's upwards of 60 women that have handled it's a poor way of putting it, that have dealt with these sort of things from Deshaun Watson. So, as I said, glad I'm not a Browns fan. And I sort of do hope that Roger Goodell steps in and adds something onto this. I think it would certainly be the right thing to do. But I'm just not sure that in fact happens. So that's the latest there. And then the other story, Remo, how about the Miami Dolphins losing their number 1 pick next year and a 3rd-round pick the following for the tampering actions of Stephen Ross, the owner? Losing a 1st-round pick for a National Football League team can absolutely be devastating, especially in a team like Miami. And I know Tua Non and all the Tua supporters think that he's going to have this big breakout year. If he doesn't, though, the Miami Dolphins are going to need a quarterback, and to lose that pick in next year's draft could be even more devastating, as we hit with Jay Dunk earlier.
Yeah, that's huge. Losing a 1st-round pick. And the other thing that's coming out of this report, what Brian Flores, again, his lawsuit, he was saying Stephen Ross offered him $100,000 per loss, and the NFL investigating determined that $100,000 offer he was joking when he made that, so that didn't factor in. I guess if he didn't offer him like a contract for the $100,000 per loss, then it was just a joke, because they said it wasn't a real offer. So pretty that is also seems wrong in terms of teams. You see it in sports, teams not only not trying to win, but an owner advocating to his coach to lose, or jokingly advocate to lose.
Yeah, no, it is a bit of, as I said, brutal for the Dolphins. And my pal Feinberg said today on Twitter, if this happens to me, I would rather my owner walk the proverbial plank and have to leave the team than lose my 1st-round pick next year. Those things are too important. So we'll see what that means for the Dolphins going forward. Of course, we'll get much more into the NFL probably starting next week with some training camp reports. And we'll certainly bring in some fantasy experts as well to help you all get ready for your drafts coming up. All right, we touched on quickly at our Breezy Bend golf report earlier, but Fino, back-to-back. Gotta love you, Tony. Thank you. 3 in a row in the lock shop. Our Coolbet guy, Taylor Pendrith, tied for 2nd. But Remo, did you see some of the pictures from the LIV tournament on the weekend by any chance?
LIV? No, I kind of only saw the opening day stuff with Trump, and we were talked about it on here.
Well, Trump was there all weekend long. Tucker Carlson was there doing a nice sit-down interview with Greg Norman.
Individuals.
At one point yesterday, in the one box was Trump, a laughing and smiling Tucker Carlson, along with the infamous Marjorie Taylor Greene. And I'm not sure whether this is a calculated move by the LIV folks, or whether their give enough level is just so low, or whether those ties are so strong. And again, this isn't really a political take. However, when the politics are so divided right now, I would imagine if you were a new entity, it might be a good idea to try to, not play either side or look like you're entirely in bed with one. But that certainly is the case through the LIV. And I mean, yeah, the Pro-Am, I think, got a lot more attention than anything else. I believe Henrik Stenson won on the weekend, but it was Tony Finau getting it done on the PGA Tour. And I don't know, the pictures of that was just absolutely one of those ones where you go, oh, really? This is how you're introducing this new golf venture to the people of the United States, eh? It's a calculated move, that's for sure. And well, although I guess if you were ever going to go on a hard right stance in any sport, golf probably is the one to do it at.
Yeah, there was also the heckler who yelled at Phil Mickelson, do it for the Saudi royal family.
Yeah.
And
I
also
think those guys are called the Good Liars, if I'm not mistaken. They also put up some funny posters in and around the course. Bottom line is for Live, they were giving away tickets for $1. Like you could just go on to StubHub or whatever and essentially get free tickets. And it is a challenge, though, with the shotgun start, the way they have it, and the players all around the course. I mean, even I guess if they have great crowds, people will be so much spread out because they're not just at the one spot. And anyways, it looked sparsely attended. And once the tournament gets going, despite the fact that they do have some big names, I'm not really too sure how much people are caring about all that.
People are talking in chat. Greg Norman did say on the weekend that Tiger Woods received an offer between 700 and 800 million to join, and Tiger turned it down. So, I mean, the money that's being thrown out here is so ridiculous.
We use the saying unlimited cash, unlimited flow. The Saudi investment fund legitimately has unlimited reserves. And I mean, nobody can compete with that. So I don't know what's going to happen with golf going forward into next year. I mean, I do think the FedEx Cup playoffs are going to happen. I mean, we talked about Cam Smith, who won the Open Championship. He's got exemptions for the next 5 years. There's reportedly over $100 million on the table for him to leave. There is the President's Cup coming up, and I think the Aussies that are still there would love to play and be a part of that team. But once that's finished, don't be surprised if hopefully Cam Smith, I really hope that doesn't happen. I love Smith and would love to see him continue on tour. But next year, this story is just really getting started. And I know that's has rubbed some people the wrong way. Lowry's right hand, watch them live. The kind of mad they play music and tell the guys are hungover or don't care half the time. Oh, Lowry's right hand, ride with me, baby. My main man Tony Fino is red hot. Won 450 off in the last 2 weekends. Yes, back to back on Big Tone the last 2 weeks. It was a very exciting lock shop earlier today. Check that out earlier if you missed it. All right, let's get to some Coolbet lines. We'll save your wrestling takes for the end of the program on Ric Flair's final match, Remo. The CFL numbers are out. Bombers opened at 6-point favorites. When we did the lock shop earlier today, they were back to 5. They were down to 5, and it's now 5.5. And full disclosure, I did take the Alouettes +6. I fully expect the Bombers to win the game, but I just have a feeling that this is going to be a little closer than maybe some people expect. Calgary opened at 4. They're now 5-point favorites in Ottawa against the Red Blacks. The Argos yesterday opened as 2.5-point favorites. It's now down to 2 against Hamilton. And the opening line was BC 12-point favorites at home. It's now down to 11.5. I don't know. I held my nose and took the 12 points with Edmonton, Reem. But then I got reminded by Dusty about how embarrassed the Elks got in game number 1. I think they're coming around, but man, BC is still a wagon. I mean, the Bombers gave them that one loss, so we have seen them. Other than that, though, they have been flawless so far this year, and another great win with just a complete turnaround of the game in that second half, not allowing Saskatchewan on the board.
Yeah, a lot of people saying Nathan Rourke, he's human. He's starting to throw interceptions. The Bombers totally exposed him. Now the league's catching up. Not the case. He went pretty nuts with the touchdown passes and the yards this week to Saskatchewan. So Nathan Rourke, he's back, and I think he was named one of the CFL came with their top performers just during our show. I think Zach was one of them. I gotta find the list, but BC, I think they're pretty good. So they had the big win, and -11.5 at home against Edmonton. I don't know. I think I would take the Bombers -5. Although, you keep thinking, which one are they gonna lose? And they keep winning.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, Zach Collaros was one of the top performers of the week, it was all QBs. Nathan Rourke, Zach Collaros, and Caleb Evans getting Ottawa their first win of the year. And Caleb Evans, he had 286 and was 82.8% passing, 2 touchdowns. So I know a lot of people here are happy for Paul Appolice to finally get a win. That was a pretty miserable way to start the season for them, losing Masoli and losing the first 6 of the year.
Yeah, good for Ottawa. They had played some close games, couldn't win. Finally figured out Caleb Evans. He's not bad. He's good running the ball. Thought maybe we'd see Arbuckle at times, but no, we didn't. So there was Ottawa. They were getting on the board on the weekend, and I still don't think they're very good. But neither is anyone else in the East, so they're still in it.
You got it. The other thing we hit on the lock shop was, of course, the golf picks. I've hit 3 in a row, and between Dusty and I, 5 of 6. So get to the lock shop for that. All the odds are up at Coolbet for the Wyndham Championship as well. And, of course, a full slate of Major League Baseball games tonight available for you. If you've never played a Coolbet before, use the promo code WST for a 100% bonus up to $200 on your first deposit. All right, Remo. We both hit the Derby winner. What a great day it was yesterday for WST. Where are you going tonight? I've been quite busy. I don't have all my picks lately, so I may have to pull the trigger on a few of these horses.
Yeah, I was so pumped yesterday when we tweeted our picks, and they were correct. I feel a lot of pressure doing this, but I'm going to give you my selections now. Assiniboia Downs. Watch it on the YouTube channel. Bet on HPI bet. Okay, race 1. I saw this horse name. I was like, I'm very in. Party at my place. 1 word. Let's go. That was an easy bet for me. $5 to win. That was an easy one. Race 2. I'm going with some former ones for me. Interesting Times is one for me before. We are living in quite interesting times. How could I not pick that horse? I'm picking Interesting Times to win. And race 3, I'm doing a Quinella 1-3 Enhanced Finance we've had before. And the other one is Wits Gato. That's a Quinella 1-3. First and second place, any order. And race 4 to win. Call the Cops to win. We always bet on Call the Cops. So there you go.
We do. All right. Okay, I'm going to go in race number 2. I am taking Wits 10-10 to win. Number 4, bit of a longer shot. Race number 3, we're going to do a little triactor box here. Enhanced Finance, Wits Gato, and we'll throw in Zig.
Yes.
For our buddy Zig Fracassi. And then race number 4, we're going to go a 2-4 Quinella, Call the Cops, and High Rise in the Peg. And then race number 5, we'll put a little sprinkle on Heroes on Easter. Heroes on Easter, number 1 in the red one. So we'll throw those down. I'll tweak out the numbers, make sure we get it in for 5. And you would have made a little bit on me last night, but we were both positive, so that was nice on a big Derby day. And congratulations again to everyone that came out and everyone that bet on a record-setting day at Assiniboia Downs. All right, Remo, there was some wrestling on the weekend. We will finish off with this. SummerSlam was Saturday night. I PVR'd it, got home after the game and doing whatever I had. I luckily wasn't on Twitter, so I didn't really know what happened. Brock Lesnar brought out a massive piece of farm machinery and at one point literally lifted up the ring. It was quite a spectacle, but the Usos and Roman Reigns threw a bunch of stuff on him, and he did not win the last man standing match. Pat McAfee beat Baron Corbin. He's so good at this. I mean, he's an incredible announcer, and that was, I guess, his 3rd match in the WWE. He is something to behold and, pulled off some incredible moves. And I know there's a lot of people that can't stand Logan Paul, but this guy is an incredible athlete. He went up against The Miz. If you haven't seen some of the highlights, go on social media and check it out. Looked like the guy had been in the ring for 10 years. Really, really spectacular stuff. Overall, pretty fun card. It was a little meh going into it. My favorite guy, Riddle, wasn't in. But overall, pretty entertaining. But that was only one of the 2 big wrestling events. I cannot believe that Ric Flair actually had another match at 70 whatever years old.
73.
but apparently he did. It was called Ric Flair's last match, and you actually watched it?
Yeah, it was, first of all, he's 73 years old. It was kind of cool how they did it. If anyone's a wrestling fan, they did it under the old Jim Crockett Promotions banner, kind of like a joint. You know, everyone was involved. Who Mick Foley and Undertaker were front row. Tony Schiavone's doing play-by-play. And, I mean, he's 73. There's only so much you can do. It was a tag team match. Jeff Jarrett was on the other team, who's 55. I thought he looked pretty good, but Ric Flair at one point got cut. He was bleeding from his head. He faked a heart attack and then eye gouged his opponent.
Dirtiest player in the game.
Yeah. With the guitar, they went to hit him with the guitar. Obviously, he moved. I didn't think he was going to take anything too crazy. He did get suplexed at one point, Huss, and it was pretty ridiculous. And by the end of the match, he was so tired and out of gas. He's like laying on the ground on the apron of the ring, like putting his hand out, trying to get tagged in, and gave pretty rough figure four for the pin win. Obviously, he was going to win his last.
Who was
match.
Who was his partner?
I don't even know who these guys were. I'm not actually don't
What
even
do you
know.
mean? You watched it. It was against Jay Lethal and Jeff Jarrett. But who was
some
he with?
guy Andrade?
Oh,
don't know.
Andrade. Okay, yeah.
You know that guy? I don't know
Of
these
course.
guys.
Of course.
I don't
Well,
know,
you
so-
mean, well, you should, I mean, if you're gonna come in and give a review of something on the show,
Look,
maybe know who was in it. How about that?
I'm not there.
Show
for
some
any-
respect to the art of sports entertainment.
I wasn't there for anyone else in the match. I was there to see Ric Flair. Oh, Derek
Kevin
Schmidt.
Clark. Ric
Derek
Flair
Schmidt
has
says-
rice paper, thin skin. No kidding. After all these years.
Yeah, there you go. It was his son-in-law. Okay, well, I'm learning a lot about this card that had a lot of sons of.
Yeah, Andrade
wrestlers.
married Charlotte. Charlotte.
Oh,
Flair.
okay. And then who else is on this card? Brian Pillman Jr., David Boy Smith Jr., like Arn Anderson's son is on the card.
A lot of second generation
Yeah.
superstars.
More. Oh, everyone says you just body slam me. The chat saying, what?
Not over the top rope though. That was just that was a reverse knife edge in WST speak.
Oh,
Shout out
whatever.
Gorilla Monsoon.
Look, I'm here just to watch the match. I watched it.
I
There's
only like
clips on social
wrestling if
media.
there's guys over 70 wrestling. I'm
Yeah,
not into anyone under 70 getting in the ring.
Well,
that's how you get my attention.
I did get tickets to the Eagles show here in Winnipeg. I mean, those guys are over 70, so you're not wrong.
Hey, before we go, Jay's in action tonight. Lots of action. Of course, Thursday night is time for Bombers and Alouettes. Pop by your local Boston Pizza. Check out the happy hour menu and the great summer menu, including the carnitas pizzas and tacos. And of course, you can always check out their game day deals and order online at bostonpizza.com. And as we mentioned, Assiniboia Downs, we did the picks, but live racing is tonight, 7:30, tomorrow, 7:30. If you can't make it out, like so many others from around the world, open up an account to hpibet.com and watch along with us at AS Downs and the Assiniboia Downs YouTube channel. And we did mention Coolbet, of course. WST is your promo code if you haven't worked there before. So what, are we going to be back to a bit more of a normal schedule, Murat, tomorrow, Reem?
You know, I got to text these guys and figure it out. Everyone's off. Like Mike's going to Minneapolis. And who else? Ken is on his golf tour.
Ken will be all over the place.
So we'll have to figure it out.
Well, we'll work it out. And we'll have a few of the guys sitting in for some segments with Remo, who'll be driving the bus for a couple days on Thursday and Friday when I'm out at Aikens. And I'm also going to catch up with Morris Lukowicz, and we'll have that for you at some point this week. He's got a really neat Rocks and Jocks golf tournament that's coming to Winnipeg later on. We'll tell you about that in the next couple days. And, of course, game day, Thursday. And I guess that means tomorrow we'll be bombing in Walby. Following us here on WST. We'll bump people over there on the YouTube channel after the program. But it's going to do it for us. Hope you had a great weekend. Lots of fun things to talk about today. Nothing more fun, though, than the Winnipeg Blue Bombers being 8-0. They look to go 9-0 on Thursday night. We'll have much more on the blue and gold tomorrow as they head to Montreal. And we'll be back. If there's any hockey news, we'll have it for you. Of course, World Juniors coming up. Oh, by the way, I know we mentioned Leon Gavanka, but unfortunately, no Record McGroarty on Team USA. He'll look to be a member of next year's team, Reem. But I guess at this point, next week, if it's quite quiet, we will get into a little junior talk. Oh, yes, and the reminder, Valor tickets. All right, who's with us right now? Listen, this is perfect that we did this right at the end of the show because our most loyal folks that are with us here can get in on the Wheel of Winners. All right, folks, if you want to go to the Valor game, tickets tomorrow, and we've got some tickets for Sunday. So Remo, can we do a exclamation mark tickets?
Yeah, just do tomorrow. We'll do the Sunday one another time.
Yeah, okay. I'll send them to you, and you can do those on Thursday.
You send them to me.
You can do Thursday or Friday. All right, folks. So, oh no, the raffle has been canceled. We're about to starting and by the way, Darren and the gang are doing a bonfire midweek today, 7:30. That'll be fun for Bomber fans, so make sure to check that out on the YouTube channel. And I will be back tomorrow, but we'll get some stuff ready so Remo's not up a stream without a paddle, if you will, for Thursday and Friday. So as soon as this thing gets opened, we will just have you put in exclamation mark tickets. And yeah, we've got some great Valor seats to give away. Very, very fun game on Saturday. The lads deserved a much, much better fate. All right, Earl's in there, Derek, Patrolman, Pete. Yeah, exclamation mark tickets, gang. We've got a couple pairs for you. XX Revolution. So we'll spin it twice, and we'll just give a pair to our first two winners. And then stay tuned. Maybe on Thursday when I'm away, Remu will have a couple pairs of tickets for the games on Saturday to go. And if you haven't been to a game, get in the raffle. Get out there and check it out. It's been great. All right, exclamation mark tickets, everybody. If you want in, and yes, Kabilas is right. The Gold Eyes are on the road. They just finished a great 6-game homestand, winning both series. And in fact, while we get the tickets in here, let's do a quick little standings result to see where the Gold Eyes are at after that nice win yesterday. We've got news, we've got stats, and the standings are as follows right now in the American Association. The Gold Eyes 9-1 in their last 10 and winners of 5 straight. They're now 12 games above 500 at 40-28, and they are 5 back of the Kansas City Monarchs, who are coming to Winnipeg in a couple of weeks. Chicago Dogs, who the Fish just beat in the previous series, 2 out of 3, are on top of the other division at 43-25. But the Gold Eyes are the hottest team in the league right now. They are just back of Kansas City and Fargo. And if they can keep things rolling on the road like they had at home, we could be talking about a great, great pennant race in the American Association. All right, last call for Valor tickets, folks. Exclamation mark tickets if you want to get in on it. We've got a couple pairs to give away. Remis, if you want to close it off, let's finish it off with the Wheel of Winners and get some people ready for this Valor game tomorrow night.
Sure. Let me close it off. We got a couple entrants, but hold on a sec. Doing this quickly as we wind it down. Got to get that podcast
exactly. We
going.
The folks that have been waiting for the audio version. Yes, I know there's some mentions of Brad Lambert. Lambert will be playing for Finland. Maybe Finland will be our team on WST at the World Juniors. Although I think this would have been the case anyways, regardless of everything that had been happening with Hockey Canada over the last little while. It takes me a while to get into the World Juniors at Christmas. In the middle of August, let's just say I don't think I'll be living and breathing every minute of the tournament right now. But I mean, listen, for the kids that are playing in it, I hope it goes off well. I hope it's a great experience. Just a lot of bit of a dark cloud around that event and everything to do with the World Juniors right now for some pretty sad reasons.
Yeah, I'll agree with you there. I always find it hard to get excited for the round robin games where like Canada's scoring 10 on some other country. But I do enjoy, if there's a good final or playoff games or Canada US, but I'm not
Sunday night after the CFL game, I was over at a local spot near my place and we had TSN on, and it was the Canada-Switzerland game from like the under 18s or something.
Yeah, it's Ivan Halinka or Gretzky Halinka.
Yeah.
Halinka Gretzky.
Like, I mean, it was 6-0 early. It was 9 or 10 zip. I mean, primetime TV. It just goes to show there wasn't much else on right now. I'm not sure that
It's a tough time of year for live sports content. I would agree.
All right, we got the wheel?
Yeah, it is right here.
All right, everyone. Thanks for entering. We're going to spin it twice. We've got 2 pairs of tickets for tomorrow's Valor FC game, and then we'll have another couple pairs to give away on Thursday for the game on the weekend. All right, Remo, fire it up. First pair of tickets goes to who? He has spun. And our winner is Larry. Larry TSG. Right on, Larry. Larry, just fire us a quick email at winnipegsportstalk@gmail.com and let us know if that's the email you want us to send them to, and we will transfer them to you. All right, Larry's got a pair. Who is next? Who is our second winner, Reem? Winner number 2 is B. Henderson. All right, Larry, TSG, and B. Henderson are winners for today. Great stuff. And hey, you stick around, you ride with us right till the end, had a better chance of winning because we did lose a few people beforehand. So both you guys, just send us an email. winnipegsportstalk@gmail.com. I'll send you those tickets tonight and enjoy the game tomorrow, courtesy of your friends over at Winnipeg Sports Talk. All right, that's going to do it for us. Don't forget, check that new episode of The Lock Shop, folks, if you want to get to it before CFL and the golf gets going this week. And Remo will be back at it tomorrow. I'll have one more show this week, and then Michael and the boys will be taking you through Thursday and Friday heading into the weekend. And of course, big Bomber game on Thursday night. Thanks again to all the sponsors for being part of the this program and making it happen. And thanks to everyone that joined us today, both on YouTube and on the podcast. Folks, have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow right here on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily.
Oh my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.